Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, brothers and sisters. This is Brother Stanley of Sin No More Ministries here to encourage you all to support Sal's Showtime on Debate Talk for You. Those that have been showing support, you have been such a blessing to this powerful ministry in so much that this show is still on the air because of your heartfelt love gift. For those who are unable to give, we are still praying that you reach down into your pocket for $1. Yes, that's exactly what I said. I said $1. That same paper that you use for that vending machine. Amen? That dollar will make so much of a difference in this ministry. If you go to PayPal and set up your account, you can do it in so much that they can only reach out $1 every month from your check. You won't even feel it. And the show will stay alive on the air because of you. You'll have such powerful debates every week for years to come. So go to www.paypal.com, then use the email debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. That is debatetalk4u@gmail.com to donate. God bless you all.
Shalom. I want to give a shout out to Sal at Debate Talk for You. What's going on? Hey, Debate Talk for You is where it's at. Get your verses straight, put your cell phone record, come on board, present what you got. If anyone try to cut you off, Sal will just mute that guy's mic. He'll let you express what you got. He'll let you present what you studied for. Let the audience decide if what you got, is inside the scriptures. Debate Talk for You, once again, shout out to Sal. Terrific job. Hey, you can press the number 1 or find yourself on a lion's den.
Shalom, Debate Talk for You family. This spring, when you're planning your family gatherings, be sure to purchase Tupperware, kitchen storageware, and appliances for those special occasions of building memories with your loved ones, keeping your favorite foods fresh for the spring. And don't miss out on the chance to win a 32-gigabyte Kindle Fire HD with any eligible purchase made up until April 21st. Be sure to take advantage of this offer and great deals at www.shopfortupperware.com. That's SHOPFORTUPPERWARE. Make healthy meals and beautiful memories. Shalom.
Hi, this is Tyrone Thompson, host of the Blog Talk Radio broadcast, Talk Real Solutions. Please tune in and listen to all of our shows 7 nights a week at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At Talk Real Solutions, we cover a variety of topics to ensure we speak about what may be needed in our community at any time. Talk Real Solutions is the hottest blog talk radio show going on right now. You can listen to our broadcast at www.blogtalkradio.com/talkrealsolutions or visit our website at www.talkrealsolutions.com. Also like our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/talkrealsolutions. You can call in at any time during the show and add to the conversation and offer your solutions at 1-858-357-8453. That's 1-858-357-8453, because at Talk Real Solutions, we want to make sure you have a chance to talk real solutions.
Peace and greetings to all. I'm a digital artist over at Epic Arts. In fact, that's my brand. Just to get right to the meat, some current examples. Matter of fact, I consider them to be great examples of the work I do. It's the work I have been doing for Debate Talk for You for about a year now. So if you want to get a feel of like just the basic thing I do, you can have a look at Sal's Gallery. Other things I do include book cover design. So if you are an independent writer and you're looking for a unique book cover design, I'm the guy. My prices are pretty fair. You know, they're fairer than most, in fact. If you want more information on that or more information in general, you can always contact me at epicdesigns@gmail.com. See, that's EPIK, not with a C, guys. That's EPIK. So, and designs has a Z in it. That's DEZIGNS. That's EPIK DEZIGNS @gmail.com.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk for You Radio.
This is Renald Francoeur representing from Atlanta, Georgia. And when I'm not busy in the studio, I'm checking out Debate Talk for You Radio. Keep up the great work, Sal Showtime.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? How you guys doing? Welcome to another show. You're now listening to Season 6 of Debate Talk for You Radio. Of course, I'm your host, Sal Showtime, and we are back with the Relationship Challenge. We do this each and every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And so far, again, we've been getting a lot of good positive responses in regards to this particular segment, the Relationship Challenge. Today's show is entitled, Are We to Seek Family Approval Before Getting in a Relationship? Again, today's show is entitled, Are We to Seek Family Approval Before Getting into a Relationship? I believe Brother Awar was the one that actually selected this particular topic. So we're going to, jump right into this. But, of course, my special guests are standing by. But, of course, before we begin, I got to introduce the co-host of this particular segment, the creator of the Relationship Challenge, Amuna Yisrael. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me, Sal. All praise be to the Most High, the Holy One of Creation. I pray everybody is doing well this night. How are you, Brother Sal?
I'm doing pretty good. Back once again, as we always do. But, I always ask, is there anything going on, anything you want to let the people know about before we begin? Go ahead.
Many, many things. All praise be to the Most High. I pray that we're all living to our highest potential, or striving at least. Right now the book is coming out, the children's book, My Brother, My Keeper. It's on the way, as well as the Soul Center, which is a place that you're going to get some online courses. So definitely look out for those two things coming very, very soon to a computer near you. So definitely that's what's going on. And you can check me out, Amuna Yisrael, on all social media.
All right, there we go. I like that. Coming soon, a computer near you. There we go.
Like computer near you.
That's a new one right there. But, let's introduce the special guest. And let's go down the line real quick. But of course, we got the regular family that's always here each and every week. So let's go to them real quick. Let's go to Awarded Swordsman. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, shalom. Hey, sister, all praise to the Most High.
What's up, Award?
I'm good. How I sound good? I have this funny headphone. I don't know how I sound.
You sound good.
You sound okay. Sound pretty good.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
All right, and of course, the other family member we have that's here each and every week. Shout out to BK, my hometown, my stomping grounds. This is Mayana. Welcome to the show.
Shalom, everybody. I got that other coming from side after serve. Shalom, everybody. Shalom, everybody. Greetings to the listening audience, the panel, and the family. Looking forward to today's discussion.
All right, and of course we have a special guest, like we always do each and every week. We invite 1 or 2 special guests to join us in the panel, and we have Brother Mercy here. Brother Mercy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Sal Showtime, thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to the discussion on having parent approval for marriage.
All right, man. Appreciate you, man. As usual, everybody knows the only rule that I have is that if somebody's speaking, please, everybody mute your mics, and, when it's your turn to speak, then you can, open up your phone lines. But, of course, avoid background noises. So everybody can hear things. Please, I'm going to ask the special guests to mute your mics until it's your turn to speak. And, of course, Muna is going to, open up the panel. It's going to open up with an opening statement, of course. And Award of Swordsman, I guess, you're going to open up with you, too, because, being that you picked a particular topic. But start off with Muna. And, of course, I'm going to be doing my social media thing and interacting via phone. Of course, if you want to call in, you know that number, 646-716-7320. It's press number 1 once you call in, and we'll add you to the conversation. By the way, for those that are new to the show, there's no foul language, people. No foul language. When you call in, got to keep it clean, keep it professional. And, by the way, the chat room is officially open for those who are unaware. The chat room is officially open. If you want to gain access to the chat room, you have to go directly to the website. Go to www.blogtalkradio.com/debate talk for you. Click on the show, Are We to Seek Family Approval Before Getting Into a Relationship? And we scroll down to the bottom. You're going to see like a little box there. You can interact with me or anybody that's inside the chat room. And you can type in your questions for those that are shy and don't want to call in. You can type in your questions, and I'll read them out to the panel. All right, Amuna, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Brother Sal, and welcome, Brother Mercy. And I want to just give a special shout-out and thank you on air to Brother Awar and Sister Mayana, who holds it down every week, home team, all day long, and for all the guests who come on and making the relationship challenge not only successful in sense of listenership, but successful in, conversation between the masculine and feminine energy. So I just wanted to give a special shout-out. Today I'm going to do it a little different. I have a quick story to read as it encapsulates this thought. And they say you can carry thought in a story. So please, this was an article as I was looking about this topic, because we do research the topics before we come on. But this is present day, 2015. The name of the story was My Mother-in-Law Brought in Another Wife for My Husband. Okay? My mother-in-law brought in another wife for my husband. Now take a listen, and then we're going to go right on into the topic as it lines up. The person says, I'm 32. I got married this year to the father of my child. Listen clearly and closely. He is 38. We dated for 17 years, and we have a son who is 7. My son is the only grandchild who bears the family name for now. My problem is that my mother-in-law won't stop making life miserable for us. She did not attend our wedding, but 1 week after our wedding, she brought a Muslim wife for my husband, saying, it is their tradition for a man's parents to select his first wife for him. She demanded that I wait for 6 months before coming to my matrimonial home, but my husband bluntly refused. My husband has always been a Christian, even before I met him, though he is from a Muslim background. Remember, we're looking at cultural dynamics, the things that hold true across county lines or country lines, and the things that differ. So keep that in mind. All the while, I was left in the dark until after our wedding, when my husband summoned the courage to tell me that his mother does not want us together. That explained why one day my husband told me to go and beg his parents for forgiveness, even though I did not offend them, which his mother confirmed. He told me his mother wants our child, but wants nothing to do with me. She blames me for everything my husband does. My husband is so frustrated he is now an alcoholic. He is always sad and says that his mother wants to mess his life. He doesn't want my parents to know what is going on. The wife his mother brought left 1 month after staying with us and hasn't returned past 2 months. And lastly, she says, I have cried, I have prayed, I have lost feelings for this man. What do I do because he still loves me and hasn't changed a bit? The problem is that I can't have a mother-in-law run my family for me. She wants us to live in the same state she lives in. I thought that was interesting because there's so much. If we were listening, there's a whole lot in this. So today's topic is, should I seek family approval before getting into a relationship? And furthermore, we understand that getting into the relationship should not be boyfriend and girlfriend by this point. It should be looking towards marriage. And so, again, so many pragmatic issues that are present within this narrative. But if you superimpose this narrative on the Hebrew culture and the Hebrew understanding, given the fact that outside of this space, you may be the only Hebrew and your family may be Muslim, they may be Christian, they may be of a Rasta, they may be of another orientation, and in their thought process and understanding, you should marry someone who, again, is going to fit into what it is that they're doing. So this is what we're looking at, and hopefully we're going to be looking at some of the issues that can arise as this young woman has found herself in issues that turned her husband into an alcoholic and now has ultimately mashed up their marriage. And so as Brother Sal said, Brother Awar, I believe, brought the topic up. So we're going to go to you first, Brother Awar, for your opening statements. The mic is yours.
Yeah. Right. That's funny you read that, right? Because first thing I was going to put on the board about this topic is what's working against us as a people that make us getting our wives and our husbands complicated. Okay? This is Deuteronomy 28:15. It says, but it shall come to pass if thou wilt not hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So I'm going to go to a couple of them. I'm going to go to 15. It says, I'm going to go to 48, right? It says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and nakedness and want of all things. So we don't control the land. We don't control the resources. We don't control anything. Everything we need to get, even when you get married, you want wine, we have to go purchase it from our enemies. So that's a problem. Then I'm going to read verse 41. It says, verse 41 says, and thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them. So we have sons and daughters. A lot of our sons and daughters are either in, right now they're in foster homes, broken homes, terrible homes. So how can we really marry them effectively like the commandments say when we're still in captivity? So I'm just putting everything that's working against us. While when we go to seek approval of our family, it's going to be conflict. This is another topic that causes conflict, okay? Because like you just said, with that meaning that you have people that believe in different things, and that's where the conflict comes in the house. When they get married, this guy believes that, he got that from his mother and their parents, and the parents, then they have what you call the mother's voice, where they stick with what the mother says, and that messes up the relationship with the wife. So you have all these different dynamics that's causing confusion in the house. That's why it's so hard and complicated due to the curses to effectively set up a proper marriage, okay, according to the customs of our fathers. Let's go read a couple more, and I'm going to pass the mic. I'm going to go to the 28th verse. It says, the Lord shall smite thee with madness. You have a lot of us that are mentally disturbed, too. I mean, to sound funny. Then it says, 32. It says, I'm going to go to verse 30. It says, thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people. We're in that, too. They happened in slavery, and we're still living in this. But it's not to the dynamic where it was like in slavery, but you have foster care, you have people getting adopted, you have If you don't take care of your children, you don't have the power to control that, but to take your kids. Therefore, you can't really marry your daughter and your son effectively. You have everything working against us according to these churches. So I want to build on that. And let me read this last one. This is Baruch 3, verse 6 in the King James Apocrypha says, "Behold, we are yet this day in our captivity, where thou hast scattered us for reproach and a curse, and to be subject to payment according to all the iniquities of our fathers, which departed from the Lord our power. Hear Israel, the commandments of life, give ear to the understanding of wisdom. How happeneth, Israel, that thou art in thine enemy's land, that thou art waxing old in a strange country, that thou art defiled with the dead." So the dead is all these different ideologies. So I'm just saying that's why it's so complicated to go to your parents, really, to choose your wife or get their instruction, because at the end of the day, this whole earth is engulfed in wickedness. So I'm going to pass the mic with that. I just want to set off and build from the curses too. That's it.
All right, thank you for that. That was the voice of Brother Awar, highlighting the fact that the curses are present in this conversation and they affect the way in which marriages are done and the way in which we enjoy the fruit of our labor. And that's a good, that was something I want to thank you for bringing that up, because the curses affect the fruit of our hands and the fruit of our field and the fruit of our womb. And that by extension deals with marriages. So I want to thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to go to Sister Mayana, your opening statements, your thought about what was read, your thought about what Brother Awar just said. The mic is yours.
Okay. Well, in response to what we are discussing, I would have to weigh in on the affirmative that I support the notion that we must be accountable to elders or family members before entering into a covenant. And we would definitely look to our ancestors for affirmation to that being the order of things. And because we are a Torah-centered people, we would necessarily need to go by our instructions. And our instructions are that the elders are the ones that move and negotiate these things. During the course of this discussion, we have prepared about a dozen examples, 12 very easily, of these particular arrangements being made by the elders because of the fact, and we've said this several times throughout the discussions, that marriages traditionally, culturally, and historic families and not individuals. And unfortunately, we are in a period of time and in space, specifically here in the United States, or in other Western spaces, where we are very individually minded. Eastern cultures and some African cultures aren't at that place yet. They are still in the spaces where they understand that these types of unions are part of a larger narrative that's inclusive of the family, in terms of what that generational wealth is going to be invested into and established through these unions. But we tend to look for what feels good to us, what pleases us, what's attractive to us and our personal pleasures, instead of how that's going to impact and affect the family at large. And I think that the account that you read to us of the young woman's current woe, having been married to this man who believed that he could adopt a different mindset and become disconnected to generations of history. And his family let him know that you don't disconnect from tradition that easily, that it's not really always about you. And we have a problem thinking outside of ourselves. And I think that those curses that Allah reminded us of is indicative of that. The fact that when we become too wedded to our own pleasures and whether it's interesting or appealing to us, that we don't necessarily always have the insight to look at things holistically. And that's one of the benefits of having an elder or a family member looking out and negotiating for our best interest. And like I said, over the course of the conversation, we'll give examples of that playing out throughout our records in Torah, in the Tanakh, and the Apocrypha. And, it will be interesting to get the feedback from the audience and see where this goes. So with that, I yield the floor.
All right. Thank you for that. That's the opening statement from Sister Mayana. And, again, for those who are listening, I know you guys are usually really active on social media. We're going to ask early that you press 1 and let your voice be heard so this conversation could kind of continue to take form and we can kind of get to the bottom of this matter with understanding and hopefully to avert any mistakes that we may make going forward. So with that, I'm going to go to Brother Mercy for your opening statements. Welcome back once again, Brother Mercy. Your opening statements, should we seek family approval before getting into a relationship or beginning the marriage process? Your thoughts?
Yes, I believe we should. And I'm going to start out with a couple verses. Genesis 24, not only should we seek approval, but in this case, Abraham and Sarah, not only does Isaac doesn't really seek approval, but his parents take the authority and choose a wife for him. We see in 24 that Abraham was old, well advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And I said to the oldest son of his house, who ruled over all that he had, please put your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you would not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell. Now, this is key. Where you're located, your geographic location is so important. If you're wandering into a foreign land, it's important that parents take the initiative and choose their children's mates, because the daughters of the land were not fit for the sons of Abraham. So it is key that the parents take an authoritative. We see that with Abraham and Sarah. And then we will fast forward to Genesis chapter 28. Isaac does the same thing as his father Abraham, because God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then Isaac said in 28, then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Against Isaac repeats the same exact words as his father. He says, arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother-in-law, and take yourself a wife from there of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother, which is his uncle. Now we see here that he gives orders to return back to his home country. The same thing Abraham did with Isaac. He took a wife from his home country. And not of the daughters of Canaan. Isaac did the same thing with his son Jacob. He tells him to go to his uncle's house and not take the daughters of the land of Canaan, because God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, fast forward again real quick. We go to Genesis chapter 38, and we see here that the trend has been lost. We have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, each been arranged by their parents, but in Jacob's case, he decides not to take the authoritative position, and as a result, Judah, his firstborn, goes out in chapter 38 and marries the daughters of Canaan. And not only does he do that, if you read verse 1, it came about at the time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira, and Judah saw there was a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he married her and went into her. And she conceived a boy's son. He called his name She conceived again a boy's son, and called his name Onan. He conceived yet again a boy's son, and called his name Shelah. He was at Chesed when she bore him. So then Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. So not only does he take a foreign wife, but he continues the tradition of breaking the family tradition by choosing Canaanite women for his sons. So what we have here, not only do we need parent approval, it depends on who our parents are. If our parents are not observing the traditions of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then we might be in trouble. If they follow the pattern of Judah and we let him choose daughters from the forbidden land, from the daughters from the land, then we can get in trouble that way. So that's a double-edged sword. So that's all I want to say. We should have parent approval as long as the parents are following Torah. We should not do as Judah did. We should do as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did. That's my closing remarks for my opening statement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. We are getting started. I'm going to go to the word on the street and the poll, and I want to thank Sister Mayana for throwing up this poll earlier. And the question is, are we to seek family approval before getting into relationships? We have 15 votes that says yes. We have 6 votes that says seek approval from elders, those who we are accountable to for protection and accountability. And 4 people said no. And I just want to throw this no in here. One of the no's says, I want to say no, just like Brother Mercy was just saying, because my family morals and values are based upon materialistic things, but I'm going to assume we're thinking according to our culture with this question. So this is something that comes up often. I don't have to seek family approval because they're not in Torah. I don't have to seek family approval because they don't know they're an Israelite. Is this accurate, or do we see this reflected in the scripture? And is family approval only having to do with the fact that you subscribe to knowing that you're an Israelite, or are there some insightful things as it regards to a relationship in general that one should seek counsel on? It says there's wisdom and sound counsel. So that's my question on the board. Is it, if the person, say a man, and the woman is in Torah, or she just woke up to be an Israelite, let's say her name is, Ruth, right? So she just woke up to be an Israelite, and she has a family. Should this man go and speak to her family? Or should he say, you know what, she's not in Torah, so this will just be between us? Sister Mayana, I'll start with you. That's the question that's on the board, and I'll go all the way around because this happens very, very often. One is in Torah. Both of them woke up, and their family is not. Should they still counsel with their family? Sister Mayana.
Okay, you're correct. This does happen quite often. It's one of the things that we hear repeated in many of the council environments that we have. And absolutely, irrespective of whether or not the family is or proclaims to be awake, the family still is an integral part of these type of marriage situations because, as stated previously, couples are not little islands. They don't exist in a vacuum. They are a part of a family, and there are families that are marrying. The idea that you're marrying an individual is not only is it counterintuitive, it's countercultural. And is there an example from Scripture? Absolutely. Brother Mercy began on, like I told you, there's about a dozen, and he gave you 3 of the ones that I would have gone over. But we see with Yaakov, when he goes to his mother's brother to find a wife, Laban is very clearly not in the same, doesn't have the same level of consciousness as the family that he comes from, because Laban is still dealing with idols. He's still dealing with types of divination. He isn't very forthright with some of his dealings. Nonetheless, when Jacob encountered Rachel in the field prior to going to her family, he didn't, he kissed her hello, but he didn't take her, declare her, run off with her. He understood that there was a process because he knew the law and he knew the appropriate things to do. So he went and did things in the manner in which it is to be done. And he went to Laban. He requested permission. He made sure that he was stable and able to provide for his family. All of this prior to believing that he could declare her or try to take her as a wife. So in answer to that question, absolutely, irrespective of the fact that the family may not have the same level of awareness, there's still the basic idea that your family is going to negotiate on your behalf. Furthermore, and this is another thing, we often discuss this in terms of how this benefits the woman, which it does. It offers a great deal of protection for the woman because there is a family in place that is prepared to protect her interests and negotiate on behalf of her interests. But this also benefits the men. And I'll tell you how, because men often consider this as just a barrier, but, preventing them from getting to where they want to be. But if you take into consideration her family, then you get to see what kind of environment she comes from, what kind of environment has influence on her, what kind of environment can potentially affect what's going on in your relationship later. Just a generation ago, it was very common for people to your parents or the other family parents to say, well, who are their people? Because we understand individuals based on the people they come from, their family and that environment. So if a man is able to go to her father, her uncle, her mother, whomever has been responsible and participating in raising this young woman, he knows who he can hold accountable. How did you raise her? In a sense, the family can say, I raised her well. You know that she came from a protected, loved environment. This is not someone who's going to be making poor choices, is going to be seeking affection, and making unhealthy connections at other spaces because you are familiar with what kind of healthy attachments she already has, where she is coming from. And you're not just saying, oh, okay, well, she looks good on the, when she was at the bodega, she looks very appealing to me. This is outside of her natural environment. This is just you catching her disconnected and out of context. You should be able to put a person into context and have that same kind of accountability. So there is, we get also, Sister asked, is there examples from Scripture? Absolutely. We see in Deuteronomy when a man is going to lodge a complaint against a woman, he doesn't lodge it at her feet. He takes it back to her father. What kind of woman did you give me? This is what I was expecting. This is what I got. Who's his complaint with? It's with her father, because that accountability is there. And that's what we're saying. So there's also the sense of, yes, she has protection, but there's also protection in it for the husband, because there's a place of accountability, a place for him to, a place of reference for him. So absolutely, the families have to remain involved in these relationships, because there's I think that in one of our segments outside of this particular platform, and I like to stress the word context. Context is so super extra important. And that's what family is. Family provides context. And that as long as you keep things within context, meaning keeping it within the family structure and that family environment, then you have a better idea of what you are involving yourself in and what you are getting when you begin to engage in these kinds of relationships. So prayerfully that was clear, and I will yield the floor with that.
Thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayana. The question is still on the table. The question is, if the person's family member is not in law, quote unquote, should you still seek approval, or should you still approach their father, their mother, their brothers, their family, concerning their daughter? Brother Awar, the mic is yours.
Okay, I'm gonna be straight with it, and this is a fact. And I'm going to read these two scriptures, and then I'm going to give some experience I had, okay, when I first came in this understanding. This is 1 John 5, verse 19. It says, and we know that we are of the Most High. That's us that's called in this understanding. Then it says, in the whole world lies in wickedness. This is a fact, okay? And this is where it gets very complicated. And I want to read what the Son of Man said, then I'm going to go into it. It says, this is Matthew 10:34. It says, think not that I come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man at variance against his father, the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Okay? And a man's foe shall be there of his whole household. Why does that conflict happen? Why does that happen? And I'm going to lead up to the question. Because it rounds off the, you want to do the right thing, and they don't. The family members and friends don't. And I had a situation when I first came to the truth. I was going to the school, and I was in the car with the wife at that time with her and her brother. And her brother's a government agent, right? And he asked me, he said, where are you going? Because he took the initiative to play the father. Because her father, he was there, but he wasn't really involved in her life. So he being the oldest brother, I guess he felt he should take the initiative to scrutinize who she deal with. So I'm going to the school. He's like, where you going? Like I was a child. When people say something to me stupid, I always look back, like, you talking to me? So I looked back, see he was talking to somebody else, and I told her, I just ignored him, I said, I'll talk to you later. So to make a long story short, being that she wasn't hard in my belief like I was, he manipulated her and asked her behind my back. She said, where you going? She said, well, he's an Israelite. He's going to the school. This dude went bananas, started crying. Oh, you and him, you crazy? He's going to get killed. They're going to start killing those Israelites. Why so it led up to me and her departed because of that. So what I'm saying is, when these people are not in these statues, you kind of got to, I would go and meet the family, but we're dealing with evil spirits now. Somebody's going to get in your wife's head in most cases and tell your wife, you want to be with this dude, just on a simple fact, they got some kind of spirits in them. That happens. I'm telling you, that happens. And you'll meet the family be in the park, and they have these events, they want you to come to the Christmas party, all this garbage. I've been through all that. So that's all I'm saying. Why a lot of people just choose you have your family, and as far as my house, we're going to serve the Lord. That's why sometimes they round off to that. But that's all I'm saying.
All right. Thank you for that one, Brother Awar. You raised some interesting points. I'm going to let Brother Mercy come back, and then we'll talk about it. Brother Mercy, the same question is on the table. If the person is not in law, should the male or should the counterpart still seek approval from that parent, authority figure, guardian, or should they use the thought that because they're not in it, then it really doesn't matter? Your thoughts? Is Brother Mercy still there?
Yeah, Mercy,
I'm
still
here.
on, Mr. Mercy. Okay, there you go.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I would like to say that absolutely the families should still be involved, but you have a problem. Just like you gave the story between the Muslim and the Christian, you still have a problem. That problem is going to be seen later on in the relationship, just like the example you gave. Now, the parents getting involved will be a great asset to the relationship because even the example I gave with Judah, he married the daughter of one of the Canaanite fathers. So she had a father, so he probably went through a process. Even with Samson, when he married the Philistine, he still went through a process. He had to answer a riddle. He had to pay a price. There still was a process. Even though the Canaanites worship idols, he still had went through a process. So I still believe that the family should come together. However, you're still going to have a problem because in the case of Judah and the case of Samson, we see what happened later on. Samson, the marriage didn't go through the way he wanted to go through, and now this is the key. Although the marriage didn't last, Samson still had his spiritual power. He still had his strength. He still had his hair. His hair didn't get cut off till he decided not to console his father. Even when he consoled his father over the wrong woman, he still kept his hair. See, this is what people are not seeing. Even when he went after the wrong one, because he consulted his father, he was able to keep the hair on top of his head. Now, we got Judah. Judah here, he goes and he starts a tradition and marrying his sons off with Canaanite women, which he knows is wrong. He does this. Now his two sons died because they was wicked. Now, this is the thing. I'll just say this. I'm going to end with this. You should have family approval. But even with family approval, there's still a danger in marrying someone that's not following Torah. So that's all I had to say about that.
Very interesting. And agreed, because, like you said, if it's going to be a problem, if it's a problem earlier on, you're going to have bigger problems that's going to arise later down the line. And that's why when I saw the story, I thought it was interesting because the man in the story went forward doing what he wants to do. The woman said they were together for 17 years, and they have, an 8 or 7-year-old child. But there still arose a problem. And as I believe Sister Mayana said, we're not in an island when it is that you get married. There there are parents, there are cousins, there are extended relatives. And unless you plan to totally disassociate or expect for the woman and the man to totally disassociate in this space and time, what does someone do? Realistically, not in fantasy world, but realistically, are we supposed to totally disengage from pre-existing family members? Or is there another way to go about this? Your thoughts, Sister Mayana? Because there's people out there, and I have seen, people, out there who may have married, didn't ask any questions, and now does the grandparents see their grandchildren? Do the aunts and uncles interact? Or is the person in a bubble? Sister Mayana, what's your thoughts? Somebody call you realistically. What should they do?
I think, like, for example, with the example of Judah that Brother Mercy brought out, we see that we read in either the Testament of Judah or probably the Testament of Judah, if not Joshua. Judah provides for us that although he married a Canaanite and that his 3 boys are the result of that union, the Tamar she's from the line of Shem. She's actually from the same branch that he is from, and she's not from the line of the Canaanites. So what happens is that because his wife wants her sons to have someone from her branch, that she doesn't approve of the relationship and causes a problem between her first son, and the young woman Tamar. And he's, as we established, evil and then dies. His brother's also evil with his intentions for various reasons, not important to this particular discussion, but in the end he dies as well. The third son, because the mother, according again to this extra-biblical accounts, she interferes and takes Selah and promises him to someone of her people, which is why Judah is not permitted to fulfill his promise to bring Tamar back. And it inspires us, so we go back to the biblical canon account of how that all plays out. But I say that to say this, that because of the fact that there is that kind of disharmony, where Brother Mercy does point out that the person is not amiable to Torah or the importance of being in line with Torah, there's that kind of disharmony, and these kinds of terrible things happen. Relationships get broken up, and they're maladaptive and unhealthy. We saw, for example, in the problem that the young lady had that you read about earlier, that because they decided to circumvent or altogether usurp the authority of his parents, even to this, we see here that he disassociates himself from his culture, chooses a woman outside of the culture, even carries on a relationship with her for almost 2 decades. But when it comes time to make her a legitimate wife, the family becomes involved, because you cannot marry a person and not be able. From what you say, they're not even in the same state, and the mother is still being this kind of influence because she is still his mother, and there are still these cultural expectations that he is attached to, even though she's coming and as an outsider. Now, had they decided not to be disingenuous and gone to the mother and the family a 4th time and said, listen, this is who I want to be with, maybe if she had accepted or at least respected the culture, we don't know. But whatever happens, because they chose not to be respectful of the culture that her husband was coming from, these kind of predictable consequences were the result. And that's what happens when you don't consult families. And this is why we see, for example, we talked a bit about Laban. We see that Naomi, even though Naomi is not her blood relative, she is the elder in the situation. Ruth makes no decisions. Ruth does not choose Boaz. She has no idea what the levirate is or how it's conducted. She sits in the cut, and all of the Hebrews around her are conducting what's going on. Naomi is initiating. Naomi is instructing. Naomi is instigating. All of these things are being done without Ruth. Ruth does not choose Boaz. She doesn't happen upon Boaz. She is basically instructed that she's going to marry Boaz. And Boaz isn't even like the first on the list. Boaz said, listen, if the guy who has an entitlement to you marries you, then that's what it will be. But if he doesn't, then I'll do it. But it's still not this is not a match that is done between lovers. This is something that is being culturally motivated and culturally orchestrated. And, people are very proud of the fact that, through these unions, Dawid and the first century Messiah are the result of those kinds of orchestrations. We see with Esther's father passes away. I believe he passes away. For whatever reason, he becomes not a factor in her life. And so her cousin Mordecai becomes the one who is responsible for her. And part of those responsibilities, he takes upon himself finding a match or creating this situations where she becomes married to the king of Persia. But this is something that her family member is making. This is not a father, because very often we find that women are not being raised by their fathers, and so men are using that as an opportunity to say, okay, well, she doesn't live with her father, or women are saying, well, I don't know my father, I don't have my father, so what do I do? There are other extended family members who can fulfill that role. We have elders that can fulfill that role. There are times and spaces and past precedences where even if you don't have your father who is actively negotiating on your behalf, then others can do it. In the Apocrypha, when Tobias or Tobit, I always get those two confused, is going to marry Sarai, his father is home. His father has not gone on this journey with him because his father's already experiencing blindness. So in this particular account, the negotiation between her father, so there's still her father and her mother on that side of the negotiating table, and a relative, a person, we find out later that it's a malak, posing as a relative, but he negotiates the terms with them. The adults are negotiating the terms. Neither Sarai nor Tobias is doing anything. The father is doing full disclosure about the fact that 7 men before him have attempted to become the husband of his daughter. Full disclosure, so he knows what he's getting into. The angel acting on behalf of his family accepts those terms. They sign whatever paper. There's a written instrument between them, and these things get done. And this is what is the method of our people. We do things in this very orderly fashion. We are a people of accountability. We are a people of order. We are a people of integrity. And so these doctrines that suggest that we are a selfish people, a self-indulgent people, and a people that are satisfied with humping our ways into holy covenants, having nothing but sex between us like mere animals, then we see that this just does not bear out in the volume of any of our texts, and that order is always at the forefront. We spoke earlier about how all of our forefathers have benefited from this, participated in these ways, and that these are the prescriptions that we have provided for us, delineated for us in our text. I'll make one final statement before I yield the floor. There are those that may feel like, well, this is a very cold way to construct a relationship. How does one then find any type of joy in that kind of relationship? And in fact, to be honest, love and attraction was not one of the things that was used to motivate our covenants. However, our scriptures are not inconsiderate of the fact that there's a human element involved in this. That there is the overarching issue of family, but there is a human element. And our scriptures provide for that. In Deuteronomy, we find that a man who has newly taken a wife is excused from work and war, the two means by which he would gain money. He has no obligation to participate in for a full year. the scripture provides that this is for the express purpose of staying with his wife to make her happy. Now, this shows two things. That one, the happiness of the woman is important to our culture. This idea that the woman's happiness is not important, that the only thing that is driving is whatever the men want to do, or this idea that the families are negotiating for their own purposes and their own interests. The idea that the woman is not important, or that the health of the relationship is not important, is completely disavowed by that one verse. The second thing that we find is that the scriptures understand that because these couples very, very likely don't know each other, because the families have made these decisions on a broader scale, that for a full year they are tasked with doing nothing but getting to know each other and making one another happy and making one another comfortable. And so in this way, it's not that our culture, because other cultures do this as well, but our culture has this built-in kind of safeguard for the health of the relationship. Yes, we're arranging your marriages. Yes, it's more, we're thinking about how this is going to benefit us generationally. Yes, but we do understand that there's a human component between the couple, and the couple has to connect on some level. So for a full year, they're tasked with doing nothing but getting to know each other and becoming comfortable with each other, which serves the ultimate purpose of the woman feeling comfortable enough to submit to this man she doesn't know. But so I wanted to interject that fact while we're making this overall discussion about this kind of sense of a lack of agency and a lack of individuality, and not allowing the conversation to wax cold and impersonal, because it's not the Torah. It's cold and impersonal, and without consideration of this very human need of affection and reciprocity. So with that, I will yield the floor.
Thank you. Torah Rabbah. Torah for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayana. For those who have just joined us, we're speaking about, do you need to seek family approval? And I would just say before I go to Brother Sal, check and see what's going on in social media land, is that sometimes we get so into what scripture is that, what scripture is that, what scripture is that, sis, what scripture is that, that we lose the value of wisdom, chakma. And so this is why we have these discussions, so that we can go, the testimonies are there for our learning, for our edification. And just because someone did it doesn't mean it worked out right. And so when we say things like either yay or nay or whatever it is that we come to, and we use some of these testimonies to say, see, such and such did it so I can do it, it's also wise to look at the end of the matter. And if you want your end of the matter to somehow end up like their end of the matter, then go in that direction. But as we're hearing so far, it's very important to know what type of family the man and the woman comes from. Not only what type of family they come from, what type of family are they still at this point? Are they going to be that thorn in your side? Are they going to be that issue that could potentially break up your home in the future? You understand? So all of these things is a wise individual perceives danger and hides themselves. So if you see a dangerous situation, just to run up in it just because I can do that, it could be problematic at the end. But Brother Sal, are you there? What's going on in social media land? Is there any questions or comments?
Oh, yeah, basically a lot of people actually are chiming in actually on social media. I have this actually particular show posted in a few groups on Facebook, and I'm getting a lot of responses. I'm just collecting some of the questions, and I'm going to read them out later on. Again, for the people out there that's tuning in, you can call in. You know that number, 646-716-7320. If you already called in, it's press number 1, and we can add you to this conversation. By the way, people, you can actually go to the group that we have. We have a new group up on Facebook. It's called DT4U Q&A Lair. That's DT number 4, letter U, Q&A Lair. And when you go in the group, you can actually, answer surveys pertaining to the particular show as we go live. And also, we have upcoming events of the show schedule, things of that nature. Plus, if you missed a debate that happened last week, you can still vote, cast your vote. Team KOJ or Team Tanakh, so make sure you go to the group, DT4U Q&A Lair. So I'm just collecting some more questions so I can read it out later on. But you can go ahead.
All right, thank you so much for that. So we have questions going forward. I'm just having questions in my thought that people may come up with, their scenarios. So say, for instance, in the case of Abigail, whose husband was a widow, and we see Dawid, before the body is cold, Dawid was like, yo, go scoop up, Abigail. And so there's a thought out there that, say if you're a widow or a divorcee, that you don't need permission, you don't really need to approach anyone because she was already married and that process is going already. What are your thoughts on that? If someone is a widow or a divorcee and they are now back to the state of being unwed, does someone need to still go to the family members for that individual, or can they just approach the individual themselves without asking any questions? Brother Awar, your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I would advise, you should go meet the family and, figure it out, see if everything's cool. And even if they don't believe and you believe, could you work with them? You know what I'm saying? That they're not getting in the way of what you and your family's about. Make sure if you send your kids to see their grandparents, the grandparents say, look, I don't care what they're doing over there. You're going to eat your pig butt family. So, even if that, like you said, if they were, no, that don't matter, okay, because you're dealing with a whole different person. So when you marry somebody else, that's a whole different dynamic. That's not the same people. So you should go and check out the family. Make sure that you can at least work with them. They don't believe what you believe. That's just my opinion.
All right, thank you for that, Brother Awar. Brother Mercy, your thoughts. If someone is a widow or a divorcee, do you still need to go through, or do you suggest, or is it scriptural that one still needs to approach the family or seek counsel before they go into that type of marriage? Your thoughts, Brother Mercy, and then we're going to come to Sister Mayana.
I would say that I'll provide a verse in the Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 8. It says, but I say to the unmarried and to the widows. Okay, let me start back over. But I say to the unmarried and to the widows. One more time. But I say to the unmarried, well, it's good for them if they remain even as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, let them marry. But it's better for the married than to burn. So he says to them, it's best that they stay unmarried. But if they can't control themselves and they're burning with passion, they probably should. I mean, it might be best. But I would say that in the case of David, you got to understand that was a war situation. In the case of war, basically he took her after, I believe, if I remember the story correctly, I think he killed her husband. So, I mean, that was a different situation, but, still the same situation, she's still a widow. But I think and then you got to understand back in those days, the wife, when she was a widow, had no support. So David took the honor of taking care of her because he knew that her support was gone. So I see that here. Now, I would say that it's better for them not to marry. However, in cases of war, you will see in Torah that men took widows during wartime. And then you'll see even in the church, New Testament, that people took advantage of widows. The church wouldn't take care of the widows, and that's why the widows would remarry, because the church had no type of widow support. Like a lot of our church today, they don't provide support for widows. So therefore, it's in the best interest for the widow to remarry because she has no support system. So that's all I wanted to say about that. But if the church is doing what they're supposed to do, then the widow should not remarry. Okay, that's all I had to say about that.
All right, so we have some interesting thoughts coming forward. Definitely going to stir up some emotions here. Sister Mayana, I think we're just going to throw all of that in the pot like some scallion, onion, and, look at that time. That joint sound like a soup right now. So should the widows and, first question, should the widows and the divorcees remarry? And second question is, if they do remarry, should the male, the masculine energy still seek permission from their families, or still the same question applies as it relates to tonight? What are your thoughts?
Okay, well, I think there's a couple of things going on here. First, we will give Brother Mercy the correction he requested. No, Nabal died. The Most High struck him down. He wasn't a case of war at all. In fact, what David does is not at all magnanimous. It is not a altruistic move on his part. It is he usurps the law, because the law says that she is the widow, and as a widow, Nabal's family had the first obligation to supply for her and to provide for her. If Nabal had any brothers, all of them had the first right to her, which David, before the body's even cold, just sends for her because he wants her with no regard for the law. Domestic David is off on all. We can praise him for his leadership. We can praise him for his military prowess, but he is an absolute mess domestically. So that's, I'm not a fan of ancestor worship. He made grievous errors in terms of his marital behavior, that being one glaring example. Abigail should have been given to her in-laws for them to provide for her. Furthermore, Hebrew law provides for widows. The fact we see Ruth gleaning in the field not because of anything other than it is the right of the widow, the stranger, and the orphan. And that what we were told is if we owned fields, that we could gather, but we couldn't take everything. That we had to leave something behind for the widow, the orphan, and the stranger. And so the widows were provided for by our Hebrew law. There's never a point that a widow is not provided for. We give them into marriage again because sons, typically, if she is a widow and she's without sons typically were the ones that took care of their family, because we are patrilocal. We were patriarchal, patrilineal, and patrilocal, meaning the family stayed with the male side of the family, and the males were responsible for their mothers. They make sure their mothers were good, which is why you see all of these women vying to have children and feeling that it's a bad thing not to have any. Hannah is devastated. Raquel is devastated while Leah's having all of these sons. There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes with that. Finally, with Paul in his 1 Corinthians 7 discussion, we discussed this: is it better to marry or to burn before? And the fact is that the 7th chapter is dealing with the fact of celibacy has become an issue in the churches, because all of the major leaders or the major examples are all celibate at the time that these new churches are being established. Paul at this time is not married, so celibacy looks good. The first century Messiah is not having relationships with anybody, so celibacy looks good. So we have at this point even married couples not engaging in intimacy. So all of 1 Corinthians 7, that the 7th chapter is dealing with not abstaining. When we get to the portion where he is talking to the widows and unmarried women, more than just this idea of celibacy is at play, because there is a law that penalizes the widow and unmarried women if they don't get married. So he has to address that. He was like, if you choose not to get married, then I think that it's good for you not to get married. But if you have to get married, then you should. It has a lot more to do with this, a burning, because all of us know that if you're burning, then you're on a very low vibration. That is not how you enter into a holy covenant. What kind of wisdom is that? If you're feeling horny, by all means get married. That is there's no way. That's not a holy foundation. Oh, you're horny. That's not horny. Is not a foundation to build a marriage on. So we need to believe that Paul is not using that as an impetus for a holy covenant. And so what we want to go back to, having addressed those issues, that should a widow, even in the terms of widowhood, absolutely, because like I said, widowhood has a law within our culture. That law is known as the levirate. And within the levirate, all family members are involved. There is no need to go back to her family, because the family she married into has taken responsibility for her. There was no reason to go to Tamar's father again for Onan once her father brought her into once her father gave her to Judah's household with the understanding that she would marry he understood that that household would take care of her. So the second son assumed the obligation of taking care of her. The third son would also assume that obligation. So, and in the time between the second and the third son, Tamar was sent back to her father. She was not left to wander in the street. So there's always the case that a woman is still protected or assumed to be a protected space. So again, as the father is not involved and we are not now practicing the leverage, I think that a lot of us for poverty, that's kind of icky to pass a woman from brother to brother. So if this woman has been married before, is now either divorced or a widow, she still is a protected space. If she does not have her father, then she is still to be provided for by way of a male cousin, an uncle, a relative that is willing to stand in her stead and negotiate for her interest, or an elder, be that male or female elder, who will negotiate for her interest and stand in accountability for her and say, yes, this is a woman of substance. Yes, I can vouch for her fitness to be a wife in your household. This element should not be diminished or undervalued. Having someone say to you, yes, I can vouch for this woman. She is a fit person for your household. She is a good woman. She is a virtuous woman. She's a studied woman. That is a good thing for the man to be able to hear and have someone vouch for. You're not going in blind. I don't know where this woman is from, but she looks good at the corner store. That's not going to be enough to build a foundation with her. Likewise, a woman who might feel like, okay, I'm grown, I've been married before, whatever instances, this is a new relationship. It is good to have people who care about you and are willing to vet person who's showing interest in you, because we see a lot of turnover in a space that there should be no turnover. There's a lot of relationships that are being labeled marriages that label gets ripped off with a change of a Facebook status. And that's because people are thinking about themselves as individuals and not thinking about how these things reflect on the nation, or the fact that we are a nation of people. We are not individuals that live in a vacuum, and that's the point that I wanted to make for this round. I yield the mic.
All right, now thank you for that. That's what are your thoughts on that, Brother Mercy? In your understanding, Sister Mayana just said, some very, very my favorite word, interesting things. That Dawid, if Abigail was childless, Dawid usurped the levirate of Nabal's family members. What are your thoughts on that before we go forward, just for clarity, because you threw that out there and she kind of, picked it up. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that before we go to Brother Sal and see what's happening on the board. Brother Mercy.
Yeah, you probably muted, Brother Mercy. Brother Mercy.
Yeah, hello? Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I was going to say that, I went back and read the story while she was talking, and, the Lord did kill her. I went back and killed him, her husband, struck Nabal, and he died. I wanted to go back to 1 Corinthians 7:8. I wanted to clarify something. In 1 Corinthians 7, actually it's in 9. For it's better to marry than to burn. Now, the with passion part, a lot of people may not notice, it's the inserted part. It's the inserted part, which means it's not in the original. I never said that she should marry if she's horny. I never said that. I said with passion, as the scripture says. Now, I wanted to clear that up, first of all, because I don't think Paul is telling her, to first of all, I don't even think he's telling her to remarry in the first place, because I'm against remarriage, as we had that discussion already. I'm against that. So I wanted to clarify that. But what I wanted to say is going back to the support system, because in the New Testament it does talk about the church negating their responsibility with the widows. It talks about it. We have several instances of that. happening and occurring. It's even occurring today because a lot of our churches are about building bigger churches. If you pay attention, you will see the same very thing is going on today. The elderly and the widows are not being cared for by the church. They're receiving governmental assistance. Okay, first of all, so that's a problem because from a biblical standpoint, the government is not supposed to take care of us. It's supposed to be the institution of Torah. So I need to make that clear. So we could act like the Torah, we're abiding by Torah and we're taking care of the widows. I know for the most part that's not true. Maybe in your jurisdiction that may be true, but for the most part that is not true. So in that case, I see even with David, I didn't say he said what he did was right. I said he took on, he decided this is what he wanted to do. David done that plenty of times, with Bathsheba. Look at David. He wanted Bathsheba. He went and got her. He a king. He's thinking like a king. He thinks he gets what he wants. So, I see that here. And so I just want to say, and then Nabal and him go back and forth. You read the story, they're going back and forth. I knew about disagreement going between her husband and David. They having disagreement because Nabal says, I don't even know this man, David. I don't know none of his young men. I don't know David or his young men. And that was the whole contention. That's how it all started. Because Nabal didn't know David. And if I had a wife and I didn't know some man approaching me and I don't know him, I'm going to be the same. Well, dude, I don't know you. Step off. You see what I'm saying? So I can see Nabal's side to this. So, yeah, the Lord killed him, but he decided to take the initiative and decided to take Abigail. That's what he decided to do. Whether it was right or wrong, whether the whole contention, whether the whole disagreement was right or wrong, we can argue that back and forth. I'm trying to figure out why David in this man's business in the first place. That's my whole thing. But that's another subject. But I just wanted to say though, to close that, this little particular thing, that I really believe I'm against remarriage in the first place. So I think the first marriage with her husband dead stands. And, she shouldn't remarry in the first place because that's remarriage. If she marries somebody else, it's still remarriage. Even though her husband's dead, it's still remarriage. So I'm against that too. So to burn with passion, I think could mean, the support system. I think that goes to the support system. But that's just my take on it. Maybe where you from, your neighborhood, they support widows. I don't know. But to me, a lot of people depend on government, Social Security, and those type of government assistance. They're not depending on the worshipers. But that's just my take, and that's all I was saying. But that's it.
Okay, well, since I didn't say anything about my neighborhood or who is supporting widows now, what I did say was that the culture provided for widows, and I gave the example of Ruth, who's also not from my neighborhood, but is from the Tanakh, and it gives the examples of why she was gleaning those fields. And I stated that our culture and our law provides for that it's supposed to be for the widow, the stranger, and the orphan. The reason the churches are supposed to provide for the widows, the orphans, and the stranger is because of that Torah principle that 10% or whatever is being donated to these establishments is supposed to go to them and not to these mega churches and their jets or whatever else is happening in those institutions. Also, just to be clear, the issue, Nabal's issue is that he didn't want to pay restitutions and tithes to David for his protection, and it wasn't a dispute over his wife. His wife came after Nabal's obstinance and his arrogance and his haughty nature against David to stay the wrath of David. So that's how he comes in contact with Abigail. There's no real indication that there was any interaction between Nabal and David after Abigail deals with David. So I just wanted to clarify because you did kind of make it, when you originally presented the account, you said that David did something as if it was something he did to protect her, because there you made the statement that there was no protection for widows at the time, and that David did this altruistic thing because he believed that she wouldn't have been taken care of otherwise, which is why I made the point that she would have, because our culture is protective of women in that. Yeah, sure, as soon as I finish my sentence. That women are a protected space, and widows are also a protected space, and I was saying that to say that absolutely, even now, widows should fall under that protective umbrella of having an elder or a family member intercede on her behalf, because women in general, including widows, are a protective space. In terms of remarriage, I get that you have a personal objection to it, but unfortunately, Torah does not. So her being remarried, especially under the law of the Levirate, is a law. So she would have remarried because it's a law. And in Deuteronomy, remarriage, even after divorce, is provided for. So I think that's, like you said, that's a different discussion for probably a different segment. If you want to talk about remarriage and another relationship challenge. But I just wanted to be clear on why I said what I said, and that it wasn't meant to be oppositional, but rather informative about the topic that you rightfully presented, because it's an excellent example of what we're discussing. So, again, I would like to thank you for bringing up that example, because it's an important contribution to the conversation. And I'll stop talking so that you can say what you want to say.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick, I don't recall Nabal ever asking David to protect him. So, again, David is not minding his own business. He's in this man's business. That's the point I was making. And you will see that in the story. Nabal never asked this man to help him. So he again, you can make the argument of David does a good thing and he thinks he deserves to get paid for it, but Nabal never requested his services. So again, going back to my original point, yeah, the Lord definitely killed this man, but at the same time, David is over here in this man's business. I know we don't want to talk about that, but that's really how this man died. Because if David had not got involved with this man, the Lord may not have, the story may have ended differently. I don't know. But I'll say this. It started with David, because even in verse 4 says, when David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was sharing his sheep, David said, so we got here, I don't ever see Nabal asking for David's help. So that's the problem I see in this. David is all in this man's business. And I know you may not see that, but this is what I see in the story. If I got my family, I don't want another man in my business, bottom line, unless I ask you. You follow what I'm saying? That's all I was simply saying. And you're right, though. The Lord did kill him. It wasn't an example of war, but there was a disagreement before that. So, when men disagree, stuff happens sometimes.
All right. For those who have just joined us, this is the Relationship Challenge. Today we're speaking about, what are we speaking about? Oh, family approval. I'm just in the conversation. I'm like, David Nabal. I forget. Hold up. Family approval before you get married. So far, we have Brother Awar on the line, Sister Mayana, Brother Mercy. We have Sal, very quiet, off in the cut, on social media, tippy-tappy. And Brother Sal, what's going on? Can we get some of those questions, or is there anyone on the line who would like to
All right, so I'm about to drop some of these questions out here to the people on the panel real quick. Again, it's a very edifying show. Hopefully, you guys take down your notes. And again, everybody that's listening on social media, on Blog Talk Radio, you are welcome to call in. You know the number by now, 646-716-7320. Once you call in, simply press number 1, and we'll add you in the conversation. And once again, we have the group on Facebook, DT4U Q&A Lair. That's DT4U Q&A Lair. You can actually answer some of the surveys pertaining to the show that's going on live right now, and also see upcoming events and shows that's coming up on the platform, Debate Talk for You. But I do have some questions, but let me see the phone lines. I think I have, let me see. I'm actually seeing a caller here that says live. I never saw that, but let me open it up and see if this person has a question or not. I don't know where they're calling from, but do you have any questions or comments? Let me know where you're calling from. If you're out there, it says it's live. That's all I see, live. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, how you doing? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You talking to me?
Yeah. No, I'm trying to open up the phone lines. Yeah, they probably can't hear me right now. All right. Yeah, I see it says live. I never saw that before. But all right. But once again, press number 1 and we'll add you to the conversation. We got a lot of people listening via phone and via Skype. But you have to press number 1 in order for you to bring you in the conversation. But here goes some of the questions. Let me see. Question number 1. It says, does the young adult have any say under these conditions? Does the young adult have any say-so? Yeah, there we go. Say-so under these conditions. Let's go to Mayana.
Well, although it's a good question, thank you for that. Although yes, the adults are making this decision, if we look to the example of Rivka, who is is fated to be Isaac's wife, we see that although the servant goes to her father and basically tells him this is already a done deal because it's the will of the Most High, her father asks her, "Are you sure you want to go? Like, is it something you want to do?" So that question is there for Rivka to consider. So although the adults are doing this thing, like I said before, the Torah is not completely oblivious to the human element. The idea is simply that adults are making this decision because they are more cognizant of things like we know who the family is, where the family is from, that this is, we're an endogamous society. We're an endogamous culture historically. So, yes, the short answer to that is yes. The couple does, for the most part, have some type of say-so in terms of how they feel about the match. But they don't often have the last say. So we see that with Yaakov. He went and did everything he was supposed to do. He goes and he entreats Laban for Rachel, but Laban, being the eldest there, what he did was he executed the traditions of his people, and he married off the eldest daughter. That's what it was. That was the order of things where he was, and as the elder, he made that decision. So Yaakov really didn't have a lot of say-so in that. So there is the yes. In some cases, they are consulted. Their opinions are weighed, and in others, no. So that's pretty much something that would happen with the family, a relationship that you have with your family, that they will consider how you feel about it. Sarai and I believe that Tobias was consulted. His thoughts were weighed, and he was initially against the match because he had heard about Sarah having 7 previous men interested in marriage with her, and he heard about their demise, and he was afraid. And he spoke with his elders, and he was assured that was the woman for him, and he accepted the will of in this case, it was an angel that was talking to him, and that marriage went through. So to say that there's absolutely no discussion, that's probably not a usual thing, but ultimately, families go along with what their parents want them to do.
All right, brother. Award of Swordsman. Does the children, or not the children, the young adults, have any say-so when it comes to these circumstances? What are your thoughts?
Okay, this is Ecclesiasticus in the King James Apocrypha 7, verse 23. Hast thou children, instruct them, and bow down their neck from their youth. So there's a teaching that go on from when that baby come out the womb till they grow up, adolescent period, and even though a lot of people don't read the Bible, they have an instinct of righteousness in them. And I know me, when I had my daughter and she was young, I used to say to myself, oh man, I'm gonna marry her to a good dude. I'm gonna make sure she don't get that cat with his tail hanging off his butt. All men do that with their daughters. So you watch them until you get to the point where you instruct them that you hope they make the right decision as well. Let me read that again. It says, hast thou children, instruct them, and bow their neck to their youth. Hast thou daughters, have a care of their body. So that's a father's duty until they get to the appropriate age where even if they start courting, they make the right decision. Or they teach, then it says, and show not thyself cheerful toward them. Marry thy daughter, and so shalt thou have performed a weighty matter. But give her to a man of understanding. So that's in the psyche of the father. Make sure his daughter make the right decision. So when they're growing up, they're under their tutelage. The daughters and the sons are under the parents' tutelage, and they do put some form of righteousness in them, even if they're not in Torah law. Okay, they're in Torah law. They really are making sure they watch over them. So that's what I say about that.
All right, Mona. Yeah, by the way, I hear some breathing in the background. So it's mute your mics if you're not speaking. Mute your mics. Mona Israel, are you there?
Oh, I'm here. The babies is over here summoning me to baby court. I'm here. I think Brother Award just brought out a very interesting scripture that I would have to say, if this is something that along the way, like he said, like the scripture says, that they were instilling the parents, not just the father, the mother too, are instilling into this child, then prayerfully this is going to kind of secure the situation from your child being attracted to foolishness in the first place. And in the second place, that would mean that the parents are aware, and yes, the child does have, or the young adult does have a say. We see in the case of Samson, he had a say. And his parents said, well, can't you find somebody else? So it wasn't totally totalitarian, you know what I'm saying, are you going to marry who I say or else, that kind of vibe, because, again, that's going to lead to a miserable environment for your child. So hopefully there's balance in it. And hopefully there's balance on both sides. And that, like Amor just said, for me, starts from a very young age. And being that, because the parents are the first model for what a suitable mate looks like. So in our hopes that our children marry suitable mates, we have to model that for them from childhood. So that's my thoughts. Definitely, and as Sister Mayana pointed out, even Rebecca Ribquah, she had a choice. They said, you want to go? You understand what I'm saying? And it wasn't like totally, on some next stuff. But, that's my thoughts. I relinquish the mic.
All right, Brother Mercy. Does the young adult have any say-so under these circumstances?
Yes, I think so. As we go back to 1 Samuel 25 again, we see David. Look what David is doing. If you look at David, and see this, and I'm glad she brought this story up because now I just saw some stuff because the same thing happened to me. Some dude saw my grass high, so he felt that he's going to come over and cut my grass, and then he asked my permission. He just came and started cutting my grass. The dude is trespassing. He don't even realize it. He's doing a good thing, but he didn't ask my permission. So I see the same thing with David and Nabal. He going over there in this man's business, So I see that. So do children have a say so? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But the parents should overshadow. And David asked his father, was it okay to marry Abigail? David asked his father, was it okay? David didn't go to the elders and say, well, can I go over Nabal's house and get in his business? He didn't say that. You see, David, his parents are not involved in the situation. So, yes, but the parents should still be involved. And so I think parents should be involved. But David did go through some stuff when he married Saul's daughter. That's another story. But I just wanted to say that's why David's the way he is, because when he went through his parents, a lot of bad things happened to him. And I keep talking about that, going back to that. You can go through your parents, get their approval, but bad things still can happen to you. And so I think that's why he's alone here. But, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, short answer, yes.
All right, people, once again, want to get some of your thoughts on social media. You know that number, 646-716-7320. I have a few more questions, of course. And shout out to the people that's actually shared it on their personal page on Facebook. Letting people know that Debate Talk for You is live and on the air. And also some shout out to the people that's making comments in various Facebook groups listening to the show live. But before we go on, of course, I got to let you guys know about some shows that's coming up. Next Monday, of course, we do this every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We have the Relationship Challenge Volume 11, and the topic will be Infidelity, Should I Stay or Should I Go? Once again, the topic will be Infidelity, Should I Stay or Should I Go? As a matter of fact, we already have a special guest lined up. You may have noticed, brother, if you check out the YouTube, Antoine Dotson will be here joining us live next week, Monday, on Debate Talk Free Radio. And after that, the following Monday after that, we're going to have another show that's going to be Volume 12. And the title of that show is 5 Major Reasons Why Brothers and Sisters Separate. 5 major reasons why brothers and sisters separate. And actually, we got to come up with some more topics after that, because no more, no more TRC schedule. So we're going to come up with some more topics after that, and we're going to pretty much. Oh, by the way, we're going to end Debate Talk for You season 6 late June. So we're going to end the season late June. Of course, we always come back September, Debate Talk for You Radio. So we got some more shows lined up for you guys. But let me go on to the next question, though. Let me see the next question here. It says, in 2016, in this democracy that we all live in, how can you tell your kids who to marry? How long would it take for you to make up your mind on who your kid should marry? Some parents don't think anyone is right for their seeds to engage in holy matrimony. All right. Let's go to a Water Swordsman. Want to answer that question?
Yes, sir. That was my premise of bringing out the condition of the world, where you have a lot of complications. So I'm going to read this is Isaiah 60:2. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. So that's where we had too. We have to reason from that aspect of the darkness that's covering the earth, where like that question there, you have some fathers that they think nobody's good enough for their little daughter. You could be a solid dude, and they still like, nah, man. I've had that too. I've dealt in a situation like that. I know y'all probably say this guy was. But anyway, where the father like, look, this dude is not good enough because he was selfish, and he wanted his little girl to be in his life and handle business that he had her handling and all that. You have that too. You have parents that's dependent on their children as far as handling their business, and they don't want no interference. And when they get mad at that, so they look for every little discrepancy with the man, so you can't. I don't like his hair. I don't like the way he acts, and watching and scrutinizing and see if you make a mistake. So that's why your foundation got to be on what you and the woman want. Y'all got to be on one accord. That must be the foundation out of anything, because those family members can ruin everything. But I'm gonna pass the mic on that.
All right, Brother Mercy, you want me to read the question again so you can hear it clearly, or you want to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead and read the question again.
All right, once again it says, in 2016, in this democracy that we all live in, how can you tell your kids who to marry? How long would it take for you to make up your mind on who your kid should marry? Some parents don't even think anyone is right for their seeds to engage in holy matrimony.
Okay, first of all, I will say this. We're not in a democracy. We're in a democratic government, which is two different things. The word democracy is not found in the Constitution, but it says democratic, which means democracy is descriptive, not a noun. So it describes the government that we're under. Okay, so we're not in a pure democracy, first of all. So the government is controlling a lot what we do. So that's number one. I want to get that straight. But to answer the question, in the United States of America, we have a quote-unquote democratic government. So how do we get married? Well, a lot of times, even in this country, people do ask for the blessing of the family. A lot of times, the father or the mother may give their blessing to who their children marry. We have a similar custom in our tradition today where the families come together during the marriage or they give their blessing. So I say it's still possible. It's very possible. It's just that, you have to be willing to implement the principles of Torah. And that's why our divorce rate is the way it is. I mean, we got over 50% divorce rate. Why? Because people think they are quote unquote free. And, we are to a certain extent. However, you still need to follow the principles of Torah. So, and then like Brother War said, he talks about, no one's good for my daughter. Well, maybe you're not good enough, and maybe I respect the father's opinion. I'm always going to respect the father's opinion, always. Even if I disagree with his opinion, I'm going to respect his opinion. And it's your job to convince him otherwise. Maybe you have to work a little harder, like Samson. Look what Samson had to do to marry that Philistine girl. He had to go through all of this stuff to marry her. Now, if he had married one of the little Jewish girls, then he would have had to go through all that. But the point is, in order to marry that man's daughter, he had to go through extra stuff. So sometimes you got to go through extra stuff like Samson. So I just wanted to say that, too. Sometimes you got to go through extra stuff And that might be a sign that that's the person not for you. But then again, I ain't going to say that. But I'm just saying, Samson found out, there was a conclusion to that matter. We saw what happened at the end. But I'll just say that it's possible in 2016 for us to keep Torah and to get our family members involved. That's all.
All right, let's go to Muna.
All right, can you come again with the question, Brother Sal?
All right, it says, in 2016, in this democracy that we all live in, how can you tell your kids who to marry? How long would it take for you to make up your mind on who your kids should marry? Some parents don't even think anyone is right for their seeds to engage in holy matrimony. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that the interesting part for me is the noting of the time space that we're in, as to say that for me is any different than any other time and space that we have been in culturally. All throughout the Tanakh, all throughout the scriptures, we see that, the earth has fallen into wickedness. So that's, not any different from today. That still doesn't mean that people determine morality. Morality doesn't change because it's 2016. It doesn't change because it's 1600s or 1500. It is what it is. So that's the first thing I would say to that the time date for me doesn't matter as it relates to what is the right thing to do, because we're talking about further headaches, future headaches. And so my thing is, we read the Torah oftentimes, but do we do what it says? Like in the case of Abraham, it was sticky in the time of Abraham. It was problematic to find a proper mate. Dude went over 400 miles to go find one. So it's not to say that this is any different in space and time than before. It is, do we want a proper mate for our children? Are we praying for a proper mate for our children? Are we invoking the Creator for a proper mate for our children? These are the questions that I would ask, because there's nothing different than what our forefathers went through. These are the same trials and tribulations that they went through as it relates to giving your children to a people or a family that's going to help to further what it is that you have planted in the earth. So that's my thoughts on it, is that we have to step up our game as it relates to it and stop looking, around the corner at Macy's, the corner store. You may have to broaden your horizons, and you may have to invoke the name of the Most High to get what it is that you're looking for. So I relinquish the mic.
All right, Sister Mayana.
Yeah, in many ways, I agree with Brother Mercy. That the opinion of the family remains very important. What I would like to address is that the question asks, how can we make these arrangements now, which is interesting because the topic is, do you ask for their approval, not whether or not you ask for them to make the arrangement. That's not really the question on the table. We were just, Brother Mercy introduced the fact that although we're talking about just asking for approval, there was a time when approval wasn't the limit. The parents were much more hands-on and had a more intimate influence on how these arrangements were being made, period. So the fact that we're only discussing whether or not you go to them for their blessing and for their approval kind of speaks to a great deal of attitude from those original examples that we were giving you of Laban and Naomi and Mordecai and Jethro, which we didn't get to, with Abraham and Rebecca and Tobit and so on, that those things were actually in place in our culture. So to answer your question, it's not a matter of arranging for the child. I actually arranged my daughter's marriage. I did that when she was several months old, so it wasn't a problem. She's 18 now. It's just the case. In terms of democracy may be what's going on outside my house, but not inside my house. There's no democracy inside the house. It's the instructions of her parents that run what happens inside of the household. And so their house is ran by Torah. Outside is ran by whatever governments and their principalities. So in terms of that's how I would reconcile that. So to answer the question, I think that it's beneficial to realize that we're not asking that the idea of arranging the marriage for all of these adults be what we put in place now by these people and taking away that type of agency, but instead say, okay, if you feel like you've met someone that you are interested in, to consult your family member. Have your family members involved in that. Do not isolate yourself. Isolation is not human nature. We are not isolated people. We're social people. So the idea that you're entering into this with no consultation with your family and cutting yourself off from those things that are put in place to protect you is, like I said before, counterintuitive and countercultural. So with that, I relinquish the mic.
All right, we've got a few more questions, and of course, everybody on YouTube, if you're listening to the show on YouTube, I'm going to have the group for you to go and participate in the description box, DT4U Q&A layer. Again, you can subscribe and join the group. But let me see the phone lines here. Again, if you're on the phone, if you want to chime in, you know that number, 646-716-7320. Press number 1 and we'll add you in. I see we have a lot of listeners tuning into the show, but again, we're not going to add you in unless you press number 1, and then we'll get add you into the conversation. But those just joining in, are we to seek family approval before getting into this relationship? Are we to seek family approval before getting in a relationship? That's the topic of today. And, of course, my special guest on the panel. Let me read this next question here. It says, is there anything in New Testament that support the panel members' claim to those who agree on selecting who your teenager or young adult marry? Is there anything in New Testament that support the panel members' claim to those who agree on selecting who your teenagers or young adults marry? Let's go to Water Swordsman.
That's the whole thing. The New Testament is basically a calling. The Most High calling Israel back to the voice of His Son, right? And when you're called in, you're putting back on those principles. But the difference, the benefit of the New Testament is that it gets into the core of why we were making those big mistakes back, our fathers, where they, I like what the sister said, we were approaching marriage with lust, horniness, where when you deal with it according to the spirit of righteousness. Okay, so the New Testament, the whole gospel advocates making the right decision in anything you do. You now make a right decision when you choose a mate or with the younger kids. That's why I have a concept called being born again. The born again, really, the churches give a whole different understanding. The born again is being renewed in your mind of the true essence of the commandments and statutes in the spirit that this earth taught us at verse 2. So everything you do now is being done in a whole new mindset and spirit and a more improved spirit. So everything you do, from choosing your spouse, from raising your children, from everything, that's what that whole New Testament is about. It's not a specific scripture that details it. That whole book speaking of vibration of new, in a new spirit, in a new mind, in a new holiness, which is really not new, because our fathers moved in that spirit. It's new to us, because we were indoctrinated when we were in all these different captivities. That's all I'm going to say on that.
Let's go to Amuna.
You could come again with that question for me, please.
All right, it says, is there anything in New Testament that support the panel members' claim to those who agree on selecting who your teenagers or young adults marry?
I'm a little, maybe it's me, because I'm doing two things at once. I'm a little confused on the question. Maybe the relevance of the question concerning the person wants the New Testament to validate the cultural expectation of parental approval. That's what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It wants some New Testament, the scriptures approving, arrangements of marriages. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for concerning, like Brother Awad just said, I find it hard-pressed to find some new stuff in the New Testament. And so, therefore, most thing I can say to the individual is, again, we're appealing to wisdom, we're appealing to understanding, and we're appealing to just certain things that make sense. So I'm not even going to be able to give you a chapter and verse that's going to tell you that you might want to confer with the people who now are going to be your in-laws.
You understand what I'm saying? So I don't have a chapter and verse for you. For that, with that, I just have to appeal to wisdom. But I'll go ahead and pass the mic on that one.
All right, let's go with Brother Mercy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that the New Testament, first of all, is not new. So I would like to say that, number one, the New Testament is not new. And what you will find in the New Testament, it restates everything in the Old. And so the simple, one of the 10 Commandments is honor your mother and father so that your days may be long. So, I mean, I think seeking your parents' advice on who you marry is honoring them. I don't see how you can honor your parents and go after somebody your parents don't approve of. I don't see how that's honoring them. So one of the 10 Commandments is honoring your mother and father, which is in the New Testament. It came from the Old Testament, but it's also in the New Testament as well. Honor your mother and father is recorded in the New Testament. So I think that you must honor your mother and father, in that you honor them by seeking their advice and who you should marry. But, yeah, that's what I would say. The New Testament verse is one of the 10 Commandments, honor your mother and father.
Amayana, go ahead.
All right, shalom. So the question is whether or not the things you're discussing is found in the New Testament. Like the rest of the panel, I find that interesting since the New Testament is in the first century, and even then, none of these letters existed, so everybody would be referring back to Torah. But since this person is asking for a first century look back, absolutely it's there. Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians in the 7th chapter, the 37th verse, beginning at the 36th and ending around the 38th verse, 36 says, but if any man thinks that he is acting unbecomingly towards his virgin daughter, if she is past her youth, and if it must be so, let him do what he wishes. He does not sin, let her marry. So we see here, and it goes on, it's still talking about the interaction and involvement of her father in this decision. Again, that's the first it's labeled the first letter to the Corinthians. It's not the first letter, but the 7th chapter, beginning with the 36th verse. So you can go and look at that. The other thing we've been discussing is the levirate, and we see the levirate mentioned also in the first century letters. You can look in Matthew, for example, where the question is posed to the first century Messiah: what happens when a woman is married to a man and then he dies, and then she is then married to his brothers, and so on until she's married to 7 men before the end of her life? That's because the law of the levirate has been initiated and executed, and this is a time that, this is obviously this is still in current practice, that this is something that she is, the person is consulting the Messiah about. So, to answer your question, yes, both the levirate, which is a type of marriage, and that consultation and the involvement of families is present in the first century writings, as well as a parent's involvement in his daughter's marriage and marriage arrangements. I hope that was helpful.
All right, once again, the number is 646-716-7320. Simply press number 1 to add you in the conversation. I believe I have maybe one or two more questions. Let me see. Next question is, what if you approve your young adult's marriage and years later it goes south? Is there any accountability on the parent's part? Okay. Let's go to our water swordsman.
It depends on what you mean it goes sour. Because really, going back to the first topic about divorce, we can't actually on no such thing as divorce. And you got to work that out. What is going sour? It happens, but the whole key is, I know I would teach my daughter no matter what. But it's not in going back to training her what type of man to pick. Hopefully, she don't get into that complication. Like in that movie, Boys in the Hood, when that brother trained his son, he trained his son up, and he prayed that his son made the right decision, and his son made the right decision. So if going back to the parents, if you really serious about this book and you train your kids right, they're going to always make the right decision, even from the beginning of a relationship. And most relationships like that is endless till somebody dies. That's what I think.
Yeah, actually, this person followed up and said that they been through this personally, and they felt really bad after the situation has happened. So actually, it's a personal question. Let's go to Mayana.
Personal accountability. I think that once the marriage is underfoot, that a lot of what happens within the couple happens between the couple. So the idea of accountability, we do see that if, for example, I think you gave this example earlier, on the one hand, in Deuteronomy, where a man later feels that he has been defrauded by the family, he brings that matter to the family for some type of restitution. And if he is found to be correct, then the family takes that liability and the daughter is duly punished. If he's found to be lying, then he assumes the penalty for putting a stain on the name of the daughter of Israel. So in Scripture, there is that sense of accountability, which is why I said it earlier, that there's a benefit on both sides. There's the party that's being protected, and there's the other party that is receiving an assurance of the quality of the person that they're entering into that union with. That is why on both sides there should be that kind of communication between the families. And I don't know the details of the querent's personal experience, so it would be hard for me to really reply on that side. I don't know if the families assumed that type of accountability, or to what extent both of the families remained a part of the marriage and accountability. So I don't know. There are variables there that I can't really address on that personal level. But on the Torah side and how it's presented in Scripture, absolutely, that type of accountability is present and accounted for.
Brother Salah, you still there?
Oh. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, some technical stuff going on, Blog Talk. All right, let's go to Brother Mercy. Brother Mercy, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to say that going back to my earlier point where I talked about what happens when parents are not exactly following Torah as they should. I believe I gave the example of Judah, whatever. But the point is, I gave the example of Judah when he married that person, I think it was a Canaanite, and he married his sons to the Canaanites. We saw some disaster happen. So to answer the caller's question, it's a lot of variables to that, because you didn't mention whether your parents were upholding Torah. You didn't tell us whether your parents prayed, But, I mean, I would have to assume a lot. And if I assume that your parents honored Torah, and we got to find out what exactly was the infraction, or what was like the sister was talking about. We got to find out how did it go sour. Because, people getting divorced today over irreconcilable differences. People are just breaking up over, nothing these days. So, I mean, I don't know what that means, go sour. Milk goes sour if you take it out of the refrigerator, So I don't know what you mean, So, if, like I said, milk, if you leave it out, it'll go sour. So, I mean, what are you saying? It went sour because, she didn't do something, or he didn't do something, or, people divorce, and you divorce today for any reason, So I don't know what you mean by going sour, but I would say this. The parents are less responsible because there's no protections these days. I mean, because you're not following Torah. So, I don't see you following Torah here, because that's just what I'm sensing. I'm not saying you are. That's what I'm sensing, because that's what happens in a lot of marriages that go sour. People are not honoring Torah. People are not keeping Torah. People are circumventing things, and we see that throughout the whole entire Scripture. People not doing what they're supposed to do. People not consulting their parents, like David and Abigail. We went up through that. We see plenty of examples of people not consulting their parents. So, I mean, and then you got a parent who you say you went and got permission. I know people that have done that, but these parents are not keeping Torah. These parents are not honoring Torah. So the parents may like this person for various reasons. You got parents that like people for different reasons. They had nothing to do with Torah. So,
right.
And they'll put their blessing on it. And, there's a lot that goes into that. So I would just say this. I think, to make it real short, I think you got to keep your milk in the refrigerator so it don't go sour. These are just basic principles of Torah. You got to take care of what you have. So a lot of people these are divorcing, and they're divorcing for reasons not lawful to divorce. Let me say that. And so I just say that, and I'll just end with that.
Yeah, that sounds like a topic we're going to have to, touch on, what you mentioned earlier, remarriage. Sounds like a good topic, a controversy. You're going to bring it up on a relationship challenge. But let's go to Amuna. And by the way, the phone lines is open. Like I said, I see a lot of people listening on the phone and Skype. Just press number 1 if you want to chime in. Don't be shy. Only rule that I have is no foul language. When you call in, keep it clean, keep it professional. We want to hear from you guys out there on social media land and Blog Talk Radio. Again, the number is 646-716-7320. And this show is archived, people. The show is archived, so you can go back and check it out later on. But, Amona, you can answer the question. That.
All right, Brother Sal, it seems like I've been doing this a bit. So just for clarity, because I know I went through 3, the panelists, and the question in its entirety is what now again? Can you Whelan come again? Select.
Already seek family approval before getting into a relationship. There you go.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nah, you good. Yeah, that's right. The title. Are we to seek family approval before getting into a relationship? Okay.
No, not the title of the thing. The question. The question of the last.
Oh, the question. Oh, let me read the question again. Hold on. It says, what if you approve your adult's marriage and years later it goes south? Is there any accountability on the parent's part? So
what I'm hearing is that the parent. This is somebody who's speaking as a parent. I could be wrong, and they approved their children's marriage, and then the marriage goes
bad. Yeah, then it went south. Yeah.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, that person, if you can follow up so you can get some clarity, I'll gladly read it out to the panel. So, feel free to, send more clarity. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. So, there's many things that happen here. The title of this show was basically about entering into the covenant. And like Brother Mercy brought up, I wanted to bring it up. The children were running around, and I'm glad he did bring it up about the 5th commandment and honoring. And so being the fact that all of this happened, and now they're into the covenant, the parent doesn't go up in the covenant like, me, you. The parent is the one who's transferring these rights or these authorities, but now the onus is on the couple. You understand what I'm saying? So whether or not it was revealed before time, as it relates to this conversation, if that's what happened, then that was what was supposed to happen concerning the respect level and the approval. Like Brother Mercy said, we don't know why the milk was left out on the counter or what happened for the whole issue to go south. That would be like going deep into the business. But, again, that is in a space where now the couple is responsible, unless it is that the parent feels like they totally overlooked something or that they made a decision or gave their input in a biased way. That's the only reason where I would say, it's like somebody saying, man, I knew that, and I didn't say anything. You understand? And this is the only way in which I could see that it's an accountability where you knew that it was going to be a stumbling block and you didn't say anything. You wanted to go with the flow and, you wanted to make everything run out, and it did, and now you feel bad because you saw that a long time ago. In that case, in that scenario, I would say, yes, the parent would have some accountability because you saw and you did not say. But as it relates to this specific situation, I don't have enough information to really make a decision or really fully give my understanding on it. But like I said, for all of us, because this also happened in my personal life and in a situation where you saw something, and it's like you saw something was going to potentially be a problem, and you had to say something or be quiet and just go along with it. And if you was quiet and then it came out later, yeah, you were a little bit accountable for that. How far does that go? I don't know, but I relinquish the mic. I think I hear somebody. Is that Brother Awar?
Yeah, I was agreeing with you. That's all.
He got the amen choir going over there. Can't, brother. What? But brother Sal, yeah, that's.
All right, we have somebody on the phone line, and once again, people, this is your time. The show is archived, so you can always go back and check it out. You can go to youtube.com/debatetalkforyou, blogtalkradio.com/debatetalkforyou. You can even go to the iTunes podcast, where the show is absolutely free. And again, you can check it out on iTunes, and it automatically uploads to your system whatever you have. So the show is archived. Let's go to the phone lines, though. Let's go to 661-857. You're live on air.
Yes, I would say the first question before you could ask that question to get everybody on the same page would be, at what point in the development of the child, whether it be a man or a woman, would it be acceptable for both parents to allow the child to go out and interact in a dating manner or a courting type of manner, to have the opportunity to make this decision as far as life mating and marriage. So I would just kind of ask the group, what's their views on the courtship activities of children, and at what age would they consider those things to be acceptable according to what God's Word says? What impressions does God's Word give the members of the group as far as that is concerned?
All right, anybody in particular you want to call out to answer the question? You can go ahead. Anybody in particular?
Sister Amu, I would ask her and then hear what Brother Awar would have to say.
I would say good question. I would say based on the testimonies, we see that Isaac was 40. We see that Yaakov or Jacob was 40. It wasn't there. You don't see, let's just say, or in the extra biblical narratives, you see some different numbers. But there was a level of maturity. There was a level of, so we think like, 19, yeah, I'm ready to get an Isha. We don't see that in the Torah. We see that they went through certain levels of growing up. They had to pass through certain passages. You had to come into manhood as well as the woman, because marriage, a lot of times why this is failing is because we're not being trained and we're not being brought up through the stages. And I think Sister Mayana went over this before. Maybe it was in another form. But we're not being brought up to the stages to be ready and prepared to look for a mate. For me personally, that's Torah, and just wisdom is know what kind of child you have. In other cultures, you have matchmakers because they're looking at the personalities and what would be a good match. You understand? So knowing what kind of child you have is wisdom, because you want your offspring to be blessed. You want your children to be happy, so that or joyful, to bring forth righteous seed, because that's what it says in the book of Malachi. Why for then two becomes one? Is it not to bring forth righteous seed? And so all of this goes into the making of the appropriate time. When they're 15 and 16 and 17, they don't fully know who they are yet. They're coming into themselves. So for myself, it's something that the parents and those involved have to watch the growth and development of the child, because ultimately, if you place your child in a situation or approve of your child or your now young adult going into a situation where they're not going to be at peace, then you now have to worry about your grandchildren that's going to come. Because if it's a tumultuous situation, if it's an aggressive situation, if it's a domestic violence situation, then you really kind of jacked up your whole next generation, and that's not really the point. And so I would say, wisdom would dictate, like we see, our foreparents waited a little bit longer to kind of see how all the things kind of flesh out and bear out. But that's my 2 cents on the matter. Brother Owo.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted to say this is back in Ecclesiastes 7, verses 23. Hast thou children instruct them and bow their neck from their youth. The reason why I brought that back is because there's such an influence on kids. Like, you're not around them 24/7. Then we'll bring it back to the courting and stuff. Like when they go to school, like you have a daughter, there's so much influence in the school. There's peer pressure. Okay, they're going to grow up. And certain times, there's things you can't tell your kids. They have to learn on themselves. Their mind are not, like the sister said, their minds are not developed to comprehend certain things. There's certain things coming 10 miles away. So you really, it's a scary thing as far as when they get to that point where they want to date. How do you handle that? How do you make sure that they go with somebody that's appropriate? Because a lot of these households, man, these children are off the chain, man. It's crazy, man. You know, they punch their parents in the mouth, all kinds of stuff. And so it's very limited. You have a very limited choice on who your children is going to be with. Because you got to think about that. That's something that's going to come up because they're going to grow. They're going to become young adults. The curiosity is going to come to them. You know, so what do you do? So that's why you got to make sure you instruct them well. And then the whole hiding things from them, not telling, they're not adult enough to know about that. But then they're like victims to certain things. It's a complicated thing when you raise your children. So
yeah,
that was
my whole right. Well, that was my whole point of asking the question, because the one thing that I noticed in the Old Testament is that God said that his people were going to be a very peculiar people. And what better way to demonstrate the peculiarity and the truthfulness of the things that God has put in his word to command his creatures to obey than to set up a system that would assure that the foolishness that the world would present to the family would be totally, like, not even a consideration to be even entertained in his people.
Wow.
So I definitely see the consistency of what Sister Amuna said about, men being for it. I think that would be very peculiar, but I wouldn't necessarily see that being a definite decision for the woman, because the fertile years of the woman are before, I'd say, age 25. So I know the Creator has some prescriptions for all of that, and I think the example that we saw with Isaac, to me, was a good example of the wisdom of God's word, is that, we shouldn't be really allowing our kids to really get out there. And if you really study state law, there's really no obligation for any of us to have our children in public school. That's something to consider.
Can I address your question?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Brother Mercy, and then I wanted to say something. Go ahead, Brother Mercy.
Yeah, I was going to say, too, I talked about earlier, I don't know if you heard it, laws pertains to your geographic location. That's why when you drive in a residential area, the speed limit may be 15. When you drive on the highway, it's like 65. So you see, the law changes based on your geographic location. Abraham's geographic location at the time when he found a wife for his son Isaac, they were sojourning. They were not a nation at this time. When Israel became a nation, you'll see people getting married at younger ages. You will see that when they become a society, they get married at younger ages because everything is more formalized and people getting exposed to things a lot at earlier ages. Like our kids are getting exposed to a lot of stuff these days. More exposed than I did when I was growing up. So you got to consider that when Abraham was sojourning, Abraham had more control because it was just him and his family moving around. You see what I'm saying? And if Abraham didn't like the surroundings, he just moved and went somewhere else. You follow what I'm saying? He said, I don't like it over here. I'm going somewhere else, So that's what Abraham did. So we got to take that into consideration. So your geographic location determines the law. Now, I know in some Jewish cultures, Jewish circles, they marry at 12. Because of society, because of the influence of the world, but a 12-year-old is a lot more mature than somebody 18-year-olds. You see what I'm saying? Because at 12, some of those Jewish boys are working, building their house, are well educated. You follow what I'm saying? So all that plays a part. Like in this society, dealing with these children today, you have to be almost 18 to 21. In some states, you got to be 21. Because some states still got parental approval to get married. In some states, in some states they still got that. So. I would say it has to be later in this society because we're not really preparing our kids. like we should be. We depend on the government to raise, like you said, the public school. We let the public schools raise our kids, and we're not really teaching them anything. Public school teach them everything, So they're raising our kids. The public school is raising, and they're indoctrinating our kids. So, you don't see that with Abraham. So I say if we take control of our kids and teach them Torah and teach them the right way, they could get married earlier, but they have to wait later because what is a 17-year-old prepared to do these days? A lot of them, all they know is how to go to school. They don't know how to do anything else. So, they're not really prepared. So,
right.
so you got all that plays a part. But if you're 20 years old and you ain't never had a job before, you're not prepared. I don't care, how many churches services you went to. You still not prepared. You ain't working, you ain't prepared. I hate to say that. That's rough.
Yeah.
But
well,
that's what it is.
Well, one of the things that I like is the comparison of the Old Testament to that of the New Testament, because my understanding of the New Testament is that God came down in the form of a man and actually gave clarification and clarity by way of living the life that he has ordained and ordered for all of us to live. And I would say that time of Jesus walking the earth, Rome was pretty much running the show, and I would say that in America we kind of live under the same kind of statutory regulations that were encountered and suffered by the Jewish people under their rulership. And Jesus seemed to be able to navigate through all of that. And, when he was under the scrutiny of both governing bodies, they found him to be without sin. So to me, I would say for us as being God's peculiar people, Jesus was peculiar in that no matter what he did, these people could not find fault in any activities, whether it be on the secular side or whether it was considered to be on the religious and the traditional side of the Jewish Sanhedrin. So I would just kind of look at this. The question is just really being, how peculiar do we really want to be in terms of honoring the God who created us to be a light unto the Gentiles and a light unto the world? Do we really want to kind of create excuses, or do we want to really, because I would just say for my own personal experience, I've done a lot of things where I'm reading God's word. He actually tells me to do these things that's totally contrary to all the counsels I've received from friends as well as even leaders in the church. And when I went off and did what God had commanded me to do, I see the wisdom of his instruction in contrast to the foolish counsel of those that are coming at me with care, but they're not coming at me with the true and righteous counsel of God. So I'm just considering the fact that maybe we need to look at this issue of being peculiar and more contrasted to the foolishness of God being, far wiser than the wisest counsel of men. That's all. And I thank you guys for taking my call.
I want to thank the caller for calling in as well. I just wanted to add to that as well. Thank you, Brother Mercy, for sharing. As it relates to what you were saying with the space and time that Abraham was in, our father Yitzchak, if I was not mistaken, when you were speaking, it came to my mind that Moshe or Moses was also around that age. There's something that happens differently, and this is the stuff we have to get back to. The caller was just alluding to it, that it happens differently in the maturity of the male to the female. But just because someone is in the stage of which they can procreate does not necessarily mean that at that space and time they are ready to. Because when you enter into marriage, certain things have to already be in place in order to contribute to the success. In the next week, I think, or the week after next, we're going to speak about the 5 things that happens or the major reasons why marriages break apart. A lot of these things, in my estimation, have to do with not being prepared to make a covenant such as this and to sustain one. And this is what, when that masculine principle, he has a longer journey to get to that space of being prepared. He has to learn how to govern himself and rule himself first. And all too often, men are going into spaces to say they're going to govern their household when they cannot first control themselves. And so also it is with the woman. So this time that's allotted for people to actually grow up before you take on the responsibility. And sometimes for those who are not prepared, a burden of marriage is wise. That's wisdom. It doesn't matter what space and time you're in, just because, and like you said, we don't necessarily have to send our children into these spaces. But when we do, we understand that we're sacrificing their youth, because now they're going to be exposed to all of these things that are going to force them to enter into a world that they are not yet ready to process or understand. And it was funny, when I was overseas, I saw 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds still at their parents' houses. In other cultures, you're not grown. You understand what I'm saying? You're going to school and you're learning how to be whatever it is that you're going to be before you can say, now I'm ready to take on a wife. Now I'm ready to take on a family. And men do it way too young. And what happens is the responsibility wears him down. He gets antsy. He gets agitated. He gets, whatever it is, and he no longer sees that woman. Now she's burdensome. And so are the children that follow. Why? Because we're doing things in a way in which, we think we're grown. And so I just wanted to add that to the conversation as it related to what we're seeing throughout the Torah, older age for getting married, and why there's a level of wisdom to it and a level of government that we're missing in this space and time more often than not. But anywho, Brother Sal, are you still there? Thank everybody for chiming in. For those who just joined us, we kind of take a little detour, but we're still on the topic. Should you seek your parents' approval before getting married? Brother Sal, are you still there? Any more questions or anybody on the phone lines?
Yeah, I have a follow-up actually for the last question, and I'm gonna answer actually to give clarity to the audience. When actually a call just dropped, we're waiting for somebody to call back. But again, people, if you have any questions or comments, I see people on the phone line via phone or via Skype. You know that number, 646-716-7320. Simply press number 1 and we'll add you into the conversation. Again, today's topic, are we to seek family approval before getting in a relationship? What I'm going to do, I'm just going to read the last, for those who missed it, I'm just going to read the question again and the follow-up. And her name is Sister Lauren. We appreciate you, Sister Lauren, for chiming in and putting your personal situation out here for us to be edified and learn from it. It says, what if you approve your young adult marriage and years later it goes south? Is there any accountability on the parents' part? And for clarity, she states, my daughter ended up in a domestic violence marriage with an Israelite husband for many years. My husband and I followed the laws and commandments. She doesn't believe in divorce, so she's still going through it today. I approve of this marriage along with my husband, so naturally the guilt is heavy. So that's the clarity for the question. Let's go to the sisters. Let's go to Mayana.
Okay, so it wasn't that a marriage, from what I'm hearing now, it wasn't the marriage was arranged by the parent, but instead it was approved of by the parent, and it sounds like the querent is saying that she may not have. I think that Amuna alluded to this being the possible scenario earlier, that maybe they didn't vet the person as well as they could have, and maybe in hindsight should have. In terms of that type of accountability, I can understand the guilt, and I wouldn't say there's necessarily an accountability, because we said before that once a couple is engaged and that, the people are who they are and certain things unfold, your accountability as her parent, though, would be to protect her from those consequences. If you are, I don't know, what part of, because I understand that certain people deal with certain parts of the scriptures, but if you're from the part that you are not dealing with Deuteronomy, but instead are dealing with some interpretation of the New Testament, and you won't sever this relationship, then I don't know. I think that you kind of tie your hands in that way. If you feel that you are accountable for the health and safety of your daughter, then you are within your rights to intercede on that because that's not part of the covenant that you agreed to. I mean, it doesn't sound like you're really asking what you can do, but whether or not you should shoulder any guilt or blame. And I think the only way that I would say that you might shoulder the burden of guilt and blame is if you sit back and do nothing. I think that was something that Amuna alluded to earlier also, that when you know something is wrong and you see that wrong is being done and you sit back and do nothing, then I think that would be something that you might assume guilt for. But if you see that something is wrong and you see that there's ways to protect your daughter from that circumstance and that situation, all the ways that you could possibly intercede, I think that if you exercise that type of agency, that would do a lot towards your sense of accountability. So in that way, I would answer the querent's question.
All right, Mona, you back?
Yes, sir. I want to agree with Sister Mayana on that, and I want to thank the caller or the writer for clarification. And the fact that domestic abuse is a serious issue, and the fact that for anyone who is a parent or the person that's in the domestic abuse situation, but especially for a parent who was instrumental or signed off on the situation, it doesn't just end on signing off. There is some, like Mayana is saying, there's some level of accountability that this couple has to continue to honor their parents. And so your voice, people say, they grown, I don't want to talk about it. No, your voice is still needed. This is why we see, like she said earlier, in the case of the elders in the city, if there was a council of people that you can appeal to say, hey, look, this dude is abusing my daughter. What should be done? We see in the case of Laban, he wasn't an Israelite, but Laban, he rolled up on Jacob and was like, yo, Yaakov, check it out. Here's the thing. You know what I'm saying? If you do dust and dust, you better watch your step with my daughters. So just because now you've transferred the responsibility of taking care and protecting your daughters to this man, that doesn't mean he has free reign to abuse or do whatever else the case may be. So whether or not the family needs to have counsel, whether or not there needs to be some kind of intercession to bring attention to this abuse and maybe find the root of the abuse and deal with it. But we don't get to just sit by and be like it's not our business, because if something happens on our watch, then yes, we're going to bear the iniquity. We're going to bear the guilt. Why? Because we didn't say anything about it when we had an opportunity. And, of course, there's tactful ways to do things. But the wife, the women, the children, if the community, if the parents, if the family does not intercede on their behalf, then that's to say that it's free reign for people to be abused. And actually that is what is happening in this space and time, because people are assuming that once you enter into covenant, no one could say anything to me about me and my household, which is not true, because it reflects on the family and it reflects on the community when some sin or iniquity is in the camp. So that's my 2 cents on the matter.
All right, Brother War, you can respond.
Yeah, I want to say this, right? I used to work on cars. You can buy a brand new car, right, from the dealership. But guess what? As you drive that car a year later, that car can have a glitch, okay? Something electronically is wrong with that car that nobody can figure out how to fix. And I use that scenario with this type of thing. Don't feel bad. A parent should feel bad if they make a choice, okay, choose this guy. You don't know what this guy has or this woman has. And when I get people on those abusive relationships, I put both sides on the table, because it's always two. When you say a negative situation, there's always two sides to the story. Now, it's always if somebody's real positive, that problem is going to be resolved. But if both parties are negative, that negative situation is going to always fester. So I always put what you did, what you feel, sister, that you did, and what you feel, brother, you did. And don't say what he did, say what you did, and you figure it out like that. But going back to what the sister said, don't feel bad, because people have glitches, man. In the beginning, it sound all good. It look all gravy. But as time go on and situations happen, and that person changed, man. There are situations that happen that you don't even know what's going to happen. Like he changed, or this guy become an alcoholic, or somebody smoking weed. A lot of different circumstances that you got to take to put it. It's not always your fault. You still good intent. You're not dumb. No, a lot of people are not dumb. They have good intent, but some people have glitches, and as time goes on, that glitch manifests. Something wrong with them, or they have a problem, or they drink wine, or alcoholic, or smoke weed, or they're abusive, or whatever. So don't feel bad if that happens. That's really not your fault. Like the sister said, it goes into the vicious too. But that's it.
Mercy.
Yeah, I would like to say that. Yeah, are you? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. I would like to say that, using Brother Awar's analogy of buying a new car, a lot of times you buy a new car, it comes with a warranty. And see, it comes with a certain amount of miles and a certain amount of years. And you ought to be able to have at least 5 years, 6,000 miles, or depends if you drive a Kia, I think it's 5 years, 100,000 miles. And then even after 100,000 miles run out, you can get what's called an extended warranty. So there should be some expectations when you purchase a new car. If I purchase a new car, I'm having expectations. I'm not expecting for it to break down. And I don't even want any glitches because I'm still paying the car note. So now, moving forward, you said your marriage went sour. So to me, when you talk about milk going sour, once it goes sour, you can't repair it. You got to buy a new carton of milk. So what I would say is this. With that situation, a lot of times when you got abusive relationships, something is going wrong. I promise you, something. And like Brother Watt said, a lot of times on both sides. But yeah, you feel guilty, and the only guilty part, like the sister said, is you're not being proactive. You're not doing anything to fix the situation. Just go in and find out what the problem is. Find out why this guy has so much anger in himself, or find out what both parties are doing and try to rectify the situation if you can. But, I'm trying to be as nice and be as cordial as possible, but I don't promote a man putting his hand on a woman for any reason. And I just don't see how that could be, how you could sit back and say it's my fault. No, that's his fault, putting his hands on your daughter. No, that's just, it's his fault. Because he should not be putting his hands on your daughter. Okay, that's just point blank. Okay, so, whatever she did, he needs to come to you and say your daughter's out of line, and then you need to get your daughter straight, or he could talk to you about that, but he don't need to put his hands on your daughter. He needs to understand that. And I don't say how he's a Hebrew Israelite putting his hands on a woman. He's definitely not reading Torah. He don't understand Torah at all. So he's got bigger problems. So
that's right.
And so this is, I wouldn't say that's your fault. That's his fault because he just needs to go to jail. How about that? So, and so I'll link the mic.
Let me say this right quick. It's mercy, y'all. Hey, I got knocked in the head by love. There's some abusive women out there too now. I'm telling you.
All right, send her to jail too. But the topic is this guy putting his hands on this woman's daughter. We're not saying that men should be abused. That's a very interesting interjection. The brothers shouldn't be abused either. But in this case, the querying is saying that her daughter's in a dangerous situation and this man is being violent. I'm not sure how it's helpful to say that in some general sense some hypothetical woman is being abusive to somebody when we're trying to give counsel to the sister right now.
Right.
So
I don't see any more. I don't see any more questions at this time. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give it back to you, Amuna. And if nobody else calls in or anything, we pretty much get some final words. But again, the phone lines is open, people. If you want to call in with any questions or comments, you know that number, 646-716-7320. Matter of fact, I see somebody calling in right now. Let's go to 661-857. You're live on air.
I just wanted to follow up with what the brother said about relationships being analogous to sour milk. I would say that the Bible teaches that relationships are likened unto human bodies. And just like a human body, we can cut off our members in divorce or we can kill it. But the God that we serve has proven that he has the power to even raise the dead. He can make a 100-year-old woman pregnant with a beautiful child of promise. And it's with that hope that we have the ability to enter into these relationships and even honor our word even to our own hurt, because I think there's either a psalm or a proverb where this is what is demonstrated, that, and even in the book of Hosea, it talks about, or Hosea demonstrates him keeping his word to his own hurt, but ultimately, in the end, the suffering and sacrifice that even he endured came back to him when Gomer actually became a God-honoring and faithful and covenant-honoring woman. So I would just say that we need to walk with caution when we're so quick to want to abandon our commitments just because someone's not meeting our particular expectations. We need to really look to God, because this might be the challenge that Satan is placing before our God, just as he did when God brought Job to the attention of Satan. And so Job endured all these terrible things, and ultimately God vindicated him. And just as Job was ready to kind of cash it all in, God gave him double what he had lost in the beginning. So these are the things that we need to look at, because God, he's commanding all of us to be obedient. And he doesn't just tell you, he's demonstrated that he has the power to give you a blessing, but he's also demonstrated the power that if you choose to go your own way, that cursing and all kind of calamities will follow. So we need to really move with fear and reverence to honor him and to obey him, because it's very plain and clear. He has created this world in a cause and effect manner, and all of us should be very cautious in the choices and in the mates that we choose. But it's not without the possibility that even in the midst of making a terrible decision, or one where we, oh my God, I didn't realize the woman was going to be this way, he can raise the dead.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the caller who just called in. He just ended on something that I think is very interesting to note. Sometimes it feels like it's kind of a process of, uncertainty. There's the ambiguity to how it all, I don't know how I got with this person. I don't know. There's a whole lot of I don't know, a lot of mystery that shrouds relationships. But when we begin to actually take the time to look at ourselves, to examine the things that we have endured throughout life, it becomes less of a mystery and more of, now I understand how I ended up attracting this individual. And like the caller just said, it is a cause and effect, a law of attraction that is operating in our lives, whether we know it or not. And so this is why I myself personally think it's very interesting and not interesting, very important to know who we are and know what issues within us did we need to ask the Creator to begin to heal. Because before we attract, if we are at the space, or our children are at the space, that before you attract who you don't want, you need to fix yourself. You need to take a look at yourself. You need to examine yourself. So when you go forward, you understand, you will attract someone that is at the vibration that you are at. And this is like the hidden thing that's going on behind the scenes. And when we wake up to it, we feel like we're living in Hades, because now you're with someone where you don't understand where they came from and you don't know why they won't leave. And this is what's plaguing, whether you know you're Israelite or not, whether you're in the truth or not, this is what is happening a large majority of the time. And we're blaming it on Satan. We're blaming it on this one. We're blaming it on that one, when reality is just our ignorance and our lack of understanding ourselves that is causing us to be in this situation. That's just my 2 cents on the matter. But for those who've just joined us, we're at the tail end of this conversation. Should we ask, or do we need our parents' approval, or should we seek approval before getting into a relationship or marriage? If there's any, we're going to go around the table for closing statements. As Brother Sal said, we're winding down now. So we're going to go around the table for closing statements. We're going to start off with Brother Mercy.
I would like to say in closing that, yes, no doubt, you need parent approval. You should have parent approval before you get married. But as we also discussed, the parents should be more authoritative in arranging the marriages of their children. So, because we find that in Scripture. And just for the record, I haven't read one Hebrew Israelite throughout the entire Scripture that raised his hand on his wife and beat his wife like that. I don't read stories like that of great patriarchs. Maybe of the other men, but I don't see the great patriarchs like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob just beating their wives. So that's why I said what I said, because I think there's an expectation of when you use that name Hebrew Israelite, I think there needs to be an expectation. You're calling that man a Hebrew Israelite, and I'm trying to understand how this man is a Hebrew Israelite, and he don't display any of the principles of our forefathers. So that's why I said what I said. Now, and then going back to the wife when she's acting up, and I also said if she's acting up, then he needs to go to her mother and explain that he's having problems with her daughter. I also stated that. That's what that Hebrew Israelite man needs to do. The elder should have advised him on this. Should have said, well, look, brother, go to her parents and explain the problem you're having with her. Because that's what the men did in Torah. When they had a problem with their wives, they went to the elders and say, hey, look, this woman is an adulterer, or whatever the problem was. They complained to the elders. So this brother, instead of complaining, he's beating his wife. So that's why I say what I say, is that we need parent approval. And if you don't have parent approval, if you don't have parents involved, then this brother is not accountable to anybody. And then when he's not accountable to anybody, he's going to be accountable to the Roman law, which our caller alluded to, because we're still under Roman law, and that's what's going to happen. This brother's going to end up getting locked up. It's happened to our athletes. They're getting locked up, going to jail, because they have no brothers to advise them, say, man, you shouldn't be hitting on your woman. So, that type of thing. And so I just wanted to say, we need to be wise. Brothers need to be wise, but also need to be wise enough to get the parents involved so we can have that protection, so that we have a problem with our wives. We can go talk to their family about the problems we're having with our wives. You see what I'm saying? So we don't have to beat on our wives, so, and go to jail. So I just wanted to say that, it's imperative that we have these protections, because obviously if this man is doing this, he has an anger buildup. And I think that has to be addressed. And I think men need to let out. It needs to have like a cord goes into a socket. They need a let out. They need some type of support. And I think that's what's going on when you don't honor your parents. You don't have that support there to help you when you go through some of the life trials and tribulations. But that's all I can say.
Thank you for that. That was the voice of Brother Mercy participating in this panel. Thank you so much, Brother Mercy. You said some very good things.
Yeah, when I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I got a quick question specifically for you, Brother Mercy. Somebody just sent me a quick question real quick. They got you in a hot seat right now, Brother Mercy. It says you mentioned earlier that you don't believe in remarriage. So what advice would you give this sister's daughter going through domestic issues? Let me make it real quick, Brother Mercy.
Okay, I believe that there should be a reconciliation process. This brother could take anger management classes. There are courses this man can take. He has anger problems. So he needs to take some anger management. And even he went to court over there. That's what the judge would do. The judge will give him a judgment of taking an anger management class. That's what the judge is going to do when he go to court. When you send him to court, the judge is going to tell him to take anger management course. So he needs to take some anger management courses to help him deal with his anger. And they can stay married. They don't have to divorce. And she don't have to marry anybody else. So there's your answer.
All right, there we go. Stay in it. I get it.
Well, like Brother Mercy said, there is something definitely going on there. There needs to be some counsel, like he said, and there needs to be accountability. He did say some very important things to the conversation, that there needs to be an accountability, and he is definitely looking. It's a desire to control. That's what it sounds like. And like you said, when men are out of control, they're going to seek to control either by influence or by force. And in this situation, this is kind of like the last resort, where one now is going to enforce their desire on another by brute force. And so definitely he needs help. He needs to seek counsel, and she needs to be, and her family needs to be stepping in so that they can get that port that they need, and definitely get out of harm's way if it has gotten to that level. But once again, thank you for that, Brother Mercy. Brother Awar, your thoughts on this night's conversation and your closing concerning all that we have been speaking about tonight. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say this, right? This is Romans 8, verse 1. It says, there is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in we say Yahushua, some people call him different, who walk not after the flesh, but after the spirit. And that's what made like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, these men great, because they walked in the spirit. Like Abraham, when he wanted a wife for his son, he had a servant swear not to take of them Canaanites and them other nations, because he knew in the spirit what these nations had and what they delivered genetically, spiritually, culturally, and everything. So he had, the spirit gives you insight of the future as well. It gives you heads up. And if you have it now, you have knowledge of the Most High, and you have that in your members, the spirit give you like 10 steps ahead of it gives you the information to be 10 steps ahead of everything. That's the benefit of moving in the spirit, like our fathers did. So the whole moral of the story, in this day and time, being that everything is wicked and corrupt, we should all remember this. This is Ecclesiastes 35, verse 1. He that keepeth, 25, verse 1. And these things will I beautify and stood up beautiful both before the Most High and men. The unity of brethren, the love of neighbors, and a man and a wife that agree together. So that should be the goal. Even though your parents and your family, make sure the foundation of the relationship is that you and your wife is on one accord, where nobody can interrupt that, and you can do a lot of things. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic.
Thank you for your closing thoughts. That was the voice of Brother Awar, our home panelist. And we're going to go to our next home panelist, which will be the voice of Sister Mayana Johnson. Sister Mayana Johnson, you want to go ahead and finalize your thoughts on this matter? The mic is yours.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, final thoughts. I want to emphasize that we are talking about the reasons why, actually we're asking the question whether or not families should be involved in these processes before we pursue relationships. And one of the points that we try to emphasize is that unions are not just between individuals, that we were not an individualistic culture. We are a collective culture, and that we recognize ourselves in terms of our placement in whole families rather than who we are personally. And an example of that is that whenever we are introduced to an ancestor, it's always we're given their name, and then it's so-and-so is the son of another person. So they are always placed in this context of family. No matter who we're introduced to, we're also introduced to them in terms of they are the son or the grandson or the great-grandson of someone else, or the daughter, the granddaughter, or the great-granddaughter of someone else. We get we know all the way up into the grandparents of Rivka, because we get her entire lineage. So I say that just to emphasize the fact that we know each other and we understand each other in terms of who we are in the context of family. And that is why we're able to emphasize that, yes, you are absolutely to involve your families in these matters, because that's the type of culture we are in. Historically, families and elders were involved in these unions, and we see all of the benefits of having that. The fact that there is accountability on both sides. There is the accountability where the family is going to negotiate the interests and interest of and protection of the wife, or provide accountability for her fitness to be a wife. Should, as Brother Mercy said, that man have a complaint, there is someone that he can lodge that against. This is your daughter. This is how she is behaving in my household. I took her from your home. What's going on with this woman? How did you raise her? There's an accountability on the side of the family. And then we see where the querent called in or wrote in to ask what kind of accountability and where does it end? Does it end at the approval? Does the person have any recourse should that relationship go south? And so for all of these reasons, in closing, I would like to reiterate that, yes, indeed, the intercession of family, the involvement of family, the interest in the relationship of the family is an integral part of, or goes a long way into ensuring that there's going to be a solid, generational, beneficial union between the couple. And with that, I'm done for the night. Shalom.
All right. Thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayana. We've come to the end of the show. Very good show. Feel free to listen to it afterwards. Again, I don't really have much to add on that. I think we pretty much, spoke to it as it related. I'm quite sure we'll get some feedback later. Maybe we might touch it again. But for now, that sounds good to me. Brother Sal, the mic is yours. Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and hope to see you next time. Brother Sal?
All right. Once again, I appreciate everybody that came on the panel, of course. We appreciate the audience for, sending in their emails and making their comments on social media. Of course, the callers that called in. We appreciate everybody that's, participating with Debate Talk You and creating awareness of the brand. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We have shows actually Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week on Debate Talk You Radio. And, of course, like I said, next week, Monday, we're going to have Infidelity. Should I stay or should I go? Infidelity, should I stay or should I go? Sounds like a very controversial topic already. I'm pretty sure you're going to want to call in and chime in on that one. So see you guys see you guys tomorrow, and tune into the next Relationship Challenge next week. See you guys. Take care.
Daily word.